Bases dropped on a new week of Soccer's Morning Show. John, hear you there. Thanks for hanging out with us. Let me file things away here, considering I was trying to fill a glass before we came on the air. So, as always, it's there. It's there, and I'm hiding it. So, there we are. All right. It's a new week of soccer down here, and it is once again a reaction Monday after what happened this weekend involving the Atlanta United Equinox, and it was fun to be in like 98 places at one time. Morning, Alex. And we started it off with the U17s going up against the Purple Team's U17s. Down 1-0, came back to win it 2-1. I think the match is still available on the Atlanta United Academy Twitters and YouTubes and things like that. So if you want to watch that one, you can. Then it was Atlanta United with the 1-1 draw with Nashville. We got highlights and thoughts. Abe Gordon coming up from a 92-9 the game in about 8 minutes, unless Abe wants to come in early, as he always does when he'll believe in the Tom Coughlin rules. If you're 5 minutes early, you're on time. If you're on time, you're late. And if you're late, the door's closed and you can't come in. So Abe Gordon will come in just a little bit, and we'll get his thoughts on what happened this past weekend in Nashville. Then after that, it was Jason and Maddie dealing with cicadas, and the Unified team kicking off their season with a win against Nashville's Unified team. And then after that, Jason and Maddie packed up their stuff and got to Huntsville, I think half hour before kick. And then on the SDH network, big win for Atlanta United, too. Of course, it was chaos. And anything involving Huntsville is straight up chaos. And so this was, once again, no different that you had the you had the twos with leads, and you had the twos with an eventual win. And it was a 3-2 win for Atlanta United, too. First win on the road this season. They are in a stretch of 7 of 9 on the road after 7 of 8 at home to start things off. So they are like home once. And when is it that they're home? It is Crown Legacy on the 31st. Crown Legacy on the 31st, and then they're gone for like the entire month of June, I think. And trying to figure out where they are in the schedule. So, yeah, we've got a lot of road games for the twos coming up here in June. So 31st is the last home match for a while for Atlanta United, too. But a big win in Huntsville against Huntsville City Football Club. 3-2 craziness, and we can talk about that as well. It was the last day of the Premier League. If Drew can find a room of quiet, we'll discuss that with him coming up at 10:30. Bart Keeler from the Soccer for USPOD is coming up, and he'll be here for reffing down here at 10 o'clock. There is a particular play that I do want to discuss with him, and you know what play that is. And so we'll be discussing that when it comes up in short order. So wasting no time, like I said, he's on the Tom Coughlin, he's on the Tom Coughlin scale. It's just like literally 5 minutes early, you're on time. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to filibuster. Well, I was going to filibuster until 9:10 and then bring him in on the Tom Coughlin scale. But since we hit 9:10, I'm just going to go ahead and bring him in. So with all the trumpets and fanfare that we always give him on a Monday, time for Abe Gordon, 92.9 The Game. Morning, sir.
Hey, how we doing? Happy to be here. Thanks for having me as always.
Always. It's always great to get your point of view and get your what's left over from any kind of spleen venting that might have happened in the post-game show over the weekend. But your locale is different. You're not going to be yelled at 9:30.
Yeah, no, I'm back at the office today. So yeah, we got a full day. Don't worry, she'll have her moment of clarity at about 2:30 when I get back home. So we'll have to deal with it then. Okay.
Like I said, because we all know how the bosses rule the roosts. And it's like, I have to go out now. And so, of course, I've got the rowdy one, he is down here guarding the office. And so literally, that's just how he is. I mean, literally, he'll sleep all day. I mean, he is the best guardian ever of the gate. He'll sit there, and it's like if he hears something, he's instantly motivated, ready to go. But otherwise, he's just out. OUT out. Let's talk Atlanta United, and let's talk about Atlanta United in Nashville. It was an opportunity to unleash the Sleesh, get him off the schneid. But now that you've had some time to think about it, what sticks in your head from this road game?
Yeah, a couple of things, and I think we'll start here. Anytime there's a draw, right? Some draws feel like wins, some draws feel like draws, and some draws feel like losses. This, to me, really was a draw that kind of just felt like a draw. Mm-hmm. You go on the road, you're hoping to get a result. You're obviously hoping to get the full 3. I thought there was an opportunity for that, but you go down 1-0 in what, despite what Taylor Twellman seems to see.
Oh, and others, yeah.
Very, very questionable. Very, very questionable in terms of that penalty and on-swing penalty kick. But look, you go down in the first half, you have to hit halftime and you have to regroup. You make a couple of tactical changes, so credit to Gonzalo Pineda. I know a lot of listeners don't like us giving credit anymore to Gonzalo Pineda, but he did a couple of things at halftime, including replacing Firmino and TRA. And it did seem to have an impact up top. You went more to a 4-4-2 with 2 guys up there. And you do find an equalizing goal, as you mentioned, from Bartosz Slisz. And so, it was a 1-1 game. It was pretty much a must-have result. Again, I thought there was opportunities for it to be the full 3. But still relatively pleased with the performance. You could see the guys, not that there wasn't pressure on them. There certainly is, but they didn't play like they had in the past where you kind of felt like they were weighed down by the pressure. And look, to do that on the road with no number 9 and no number 10, or not no number 9, but not your number 9, not your number 10. Right. I mean, how many teams could go on the road without 2 of their DPs, their 2 highest paid players, and pick up a result? So I think it's a job well done. Now the question is simple. Is it the start of the pendulum swinging back the other way? It can't be an isolated individual result. It has to be the start of something, and that's a tall task when you have LAFC and you have at home, and then you have Inter Miami on the road. And can you kind of tread water until you get that Charlotte and Houston back-to-back and you find some winnable games at Mercedes-Benz Stadium? That's going to be the question. It cannot be a lone, isolated result. It has to lead to something.
Well, then you add to that what's happening tomorrow.
Yeah.
With Open Cup, and it's a road trip to Charleston to take on the Battery out of USL Championship. And it's an opportunity to advance one step closer to another trophy, which would get you immediately into the CONCACAF Hemispheric Extravaganza next time around. And you're wondering, okay, it's all about navigating the roster and what you have and who's healthy and how many minutes. And I've got this matchup on Tuesday, and then I've got LAFC. So this is this is juggling chainsaws for any MLS team that's at this point of their schedule that's in Open Cup tomorrow in the midweek. But, specifically here, Gonzalo Pineda is having to juggle a lot of chainsaws here with Charleston, with LAFC, with Inter Miami, just to get through the end of the month.
Yeah, it's a really, really difficult situation with your roster management because of how many midweek games the MLS is playing at this point in the season. To add this other midweek game, incredibly difficult, not to mention the injuries you're dealing with, both in terms of who is available, but also who's completely unavailable, right? And so there's a situation where Stian Gregersson's not 90 minutes fit yet. We saw that over the weekend. And so you're probably not going to throw him into a situation in the U.S. Open Cup where he just got hurt in the last U.S. Open Cup game. And so very concerned about his availability. Now, how does that circle back? Well, Noah Cobb's got a banked up foot, so now he's unavailable. You just saw Luis Abram and Stian paired. You still don't have Derek Williams. So what are you doing in your back, right? And that moves forward into what are you doing on your outside? What are you doing through your midfield? What are you doing up top? I will say this. Nick Firmino was pulled after about 45 minutes at halftime there. And a lot of that was probably tactical. But I do think there was probably a mindset of we're going to need this guy to run havoc on Tuesday as well. And certainly he stepped up in the last U.S. Open Cup with the 2 goals. I think it's going to be another youth movement, which is going to make it incredibly tough because a lot of those guys also played Saturday evening in Huntsville. And so you're going to be taxing them as well. They're not going to be fully fresh. They're not going to be necessarily raring to go, either. I think last time they had played maybe on a Friday night. This time it was on a Saturday night. So a day less of rest and recovery for even the younger guys. So it's going to be a kind of a mix and match, very difficult to figure out what they're doing tactically. I'll be honest. The other issue here is that Charleston is not the Charlotte Independents.
No.
This is a team that's won 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 straight games since their last draw.
Yeah.
And then they had 2 wins before that. They have not lost a match this season in any tournament or any league play. So this is not your normal squad, and you are going on the road. This is a very difficult side. The good news is in soccer, anything can happen, and the ball bounces weird, even though it's circular. And so very hopeful that we can see something, but it is not going to be easy. And a lot of that is because you are pressed so thin due to injuries and due to the schedule and timing.
Now, I know that Nick Markanich is going to end up being in the spot shadow for Gonzalo Pineda and his staff. Markanich is the double-digit goal scorer so far for the Charleston Battery, and Ben Pierman really has them rolling in the year plus that he's been down there. So, this is not the perpetual pushover that you think of in lower divisions by any stretch of the imagination. And so it is going to be a true test. It will be interesting to see what the lineup looks like tomorrow because, once again, as we mentioned, schedule compression is still the way of the beast right now when it comes to what we're staring at. It's like, all right, so what does it look like Tuesday to get you ready for LAFC? It's just, I mean, I don't wish this on anybody. I mean, yeah, I know you're chasing trophies and I know you're chasing wins and I know you're trying to get through the car crash and demolition derby that is the Eastern Conference. But I mean, this is really like, this is flowchart city, and I wasn't all that great at math. It's like, if A, then B, and if B, then C, and you've got to sit there and plug and play. I mean, this is madness, man.
Well, and to make it worse, I don't believe that Charleston played a weekend match.
They Birmingham midweek last week. They had nothing going on except looking at Atlanta United.
And so even more benefit to them. It's also a situation where if the season had been playing out differently for Atlanta United, maybe you look at the U.S. Open Cup a little bit differently than you are right now. But to me, despite the limitations in roster and obviously the schedule compression, all that stuff, this is a tournament that at least in my mind is continually growing in importance for what Atlanta United needs to accomplish this season. And it's something that is kind of counter to what we all thought this was going to be, right? We thought it was like, let's just play the twos or whomever academy. Let's lose and get out of this tournament. But now that you're in it, now that you kind of sniffed a victory already, and now that the MLS season has gone the way that it has gone, to me, it does feel more and more important to continually rack up wins. But you're also mixed with the idea that you just can't put the roster out there that you necessarily want to. And so, it is just a tough time for it all to be coming together, mixed in with you're not playing New England or Chicago on Saturday. You're hosting LAFC, and then after that, it is Inter Miami. It is just a really, really difficult run right now. This is going to be your second of 3 straight road games, or I think, and then or third of 3 straight road games. But it's a rough go.
Can we talk to the schedule makers a little bit and sit there and find out who angered them to give the schedule the way that this is laid out, man?
Yeah, I mean, it's just the way the MLS, and you have to wonder how the international breaks play into it, and they're really trying to get things going before that. I guess it's a week off,
Yeah.
week plus coming there at the start of the June. I know you play June 2nd and then not again until June 15th.
Right.
So they're trying to make up the matches, but it is really difficult. And I know, you look at some of the other sports and how often they play, and you might say, "Oh, come on, you can't play two times a week," but it is a little bit different, and I don't want to compare it to American football because everyone's going to tell me it's not the same. Your body doesn't need that recovery, but it really does. It really does. It's your legs as well. I don't know the last NFL player that ran 8.3 miles in a NFL game, but you do see that consistently from a number of players out there in the MLS. So it is a little bit different.
Abe Gordon, 92.9 The Game, as he always does. He always drops by and spreads his wisdom on Mondays, and it's always great to get his point of view on things. When it comes to what we saw, I mean, obviously we sit there and it's like, okay, Bartosz Slisz got off the schneid. I think it was great to see Stian Gregerson get the minutes in that he did and get him closer to being at full song. When it came to, all right, we'll treat it like hockey. We'll treat it like hockey. Being as we are in the postseason for chasing after the 50-pound cup. Who are your 3 stars for Atlanta United in the matchup on the weekend in Nashville? Who are your 3 stars?
Yeah, probably in no specific order. I would say Stian Gregerson was certainly one of them, and I had this conversation with Garrett Chapman in the pregame, but even more so once we saw the result in the postgame, and I had Jason Longshore on my show over the weekend and asked him about it too. I think we probably under-discussed the absence of our first-team center backs, and we did that because we thought Luis Abram and Noah Cobb were playing at a high level, and they were. But I also think when you look at what happened, specifically the last 2 matches before Nashville, with Benteke winning 3-header goals, with the younger cousin of Travis Kelce, Kevin Kelce, putting home a header goal as well. You do wonder what difference it would have made with Gregerson back there. And I'm not saying that Benteke would have been shut out. That's not what I'm suggesting. But I don't think it would have been a trio of goals there, all from headers. And so we probably under-discussed what it meant to this defense not having your first-team center backs in Gregerson and Williams back there. And again, like, props to Morales, who filled in, certainly Cobb and Abram. But if you go back to when they were healthy, this was looked at as one of the best defenses at the start of the season in the MLS. And a lot of that might be in regards to who you were, playing at that time as well. But it was good to see Gregerson back there. And he was doing some of the things that you asked him to do. And what does that mean? It means the guys above him can play a little bit more recklessly, play a little bit more dangerously. And that's why Bartosz Slisz is my second star of the game here. And that is because he was able to get up the field. He was able to do some of the things I've been hoping to see him do. And most notably, put some shots on goal from range. And I thought he was able to do that, certainly on the goal. But I think he's able to play higher up the field because of the fact that Gregerson is back there, and it allows him to do a lot of things. And then my third star, just out of yes, out of performance, but mostly just out of role and what he was asked to do, is Caleb Wiley. You push him high up on the left into a position that, with the exception of a couple of minute run in the U.S. Open Cup, you have not used him high left in how long? And he steps into the left attacking role pretty much seamlessly. For the first time all season, he's got space to use his speed and ability to take guys on one-on-one. I do think he was dangerous. You make a couple substitutions. What does he do? As the ultimate team player, he steps back into his role at left cornerback. I just think you just can't overstate what it means to have a guy at his age, the ability to adapt to that role. Because we've also seen, and we've seen it at every level, guys that are asked to play up top and they get pushed to the back, get lost in their positioning and they get caught staying up top, staying with the attack mentality, and it ultimately can cost the team. And that was not the case for Caleb Wiley. I think it's incredibly impressive for him to show, not that we're surprised by the versatility, but just to remind us that he does have that in his bag. So those would be my 3 stars.
Yep, right there with you, sir. Broadcast plans for what's going on with 92.9 The Game and yet another very busy week involving Atlanta United.
Yeah, just to remember, it's a little bit earlier than normal kickoff for the U.S. Open Cup. So pregame with myself and Garrett is going to start at 6 o'clock right here on 92.9 The Game. And then obviously we'll hand things off to Mike and Jason for the 7 o'clock kickoff. And then certainly we'll have the weekend action as well. That one, LAFC back at home, back at the Benz, excited for that. And hopefully an opportunity, again, that pendulum, if Nashville, if that draw on the road down a goal, if it's swinging back the right way, it can't be an isolated incident. So separate of whatever happens Tuesday in the U.S. Open Cup, let's see if they can get another MLS result on the weekend. That's the plan. That's the goal. And 92.9 Game will have all your coverage for it. So very excited.
Hey, man. Exactly. That is absolutely true. Looking forward to the early start with you and Chap on Tuesday and then getting ready for LAFC on the weekend. Thanks as always, my friend. Great to have you kicking off our week here on Reaction Monday here on SDH.
You bet, John. Always happy to be here.
All right, that's Abe. Abe's going to go and hydrate. You know, he's going to go properly hydrate now. I was looking for the mug, but he went short. He went short this morning. He was going with like the power breakfasty stuff. You know, it's like me and the Chobani when I'm not in public. Is I'll go with the short versions of everything. Once again, fire off in the comments here on the Twitch pitch and let everyone know what is on your mind when it comes to Atlanta United, when it comes to Atlanta United Nashville, when it comes to the Twos in Huntsville, when it comes to the Equinox, any other news, because I know that there was some discussion of Jurgen Klopp in the Premier League. Like I said, if Drew can find a quiet space at 10:30, we'll get into it. But there's news overseas involving Roberto De Zerbi. There's news involving Suning and Inter Milan. It's all over the place this morning. You know, once again, it's Black Monday, but a lot of the coaching stuff has kind of been decided already as we were leading into the end of the season over in Europe. But anything on your mind this morning? That's why we call it a Reaction Monday. Over, under, or on par. And yes, when Bart comes on at 10 o'clock, we are going to discuss moments. And what I'll do is we'll roll through the highlights. There's 2 of them, but they're kind of extended. And I wanted to bring in a moment from the past. We're going to go into the Wayback Machine, and we're going to look at another moment involving Atlanta United. And I don't know how many of you follow our A-lister Will Secor on the 280 character app, but he was chasing after folks at the national level about about the call that happened that we're going to be playing here in just a little bit. And we've got a flashback. And so now it'll lead into the discussion that we have with Bart coming up at 10 o'clock. And what I want Bart to do is when he puts on the yellow shirt with the pocket protector, I want to have Bart look at this both ways. I want to have Bart look at it as to why this could have been called. And then I want to have Bart look at it as to why it could not have been called. So what I want to do in these situations that have calls where we raise the people's eyebrow and go, bruh, what are you thinking? I want to have Bart come in and look at it from either side. I know that, and so what my request of Bart will be this. We'll play the moment. Then I want Bart to explain why it could have been called the way it was, why it could not have been called the way it was, or why it shouldn't. But at the same time, I know that there's going to be a dig in there. I want him to save the dig outside of the analysis. I know the dig is coming because we've all been talking about it in the Twitch pitch this morning, and it was discussed on Saturday on the 280 character app. But what I want to do is have Bart in reffing down here look at it both ways and then get in the dig, because the dig is the easy part. And we'll get into Nashville coming up in just a little bit. But the dig is the easy part in the analysis. It's an easy one, but I want to have Bart look at it both ways and walk us through why the call could have been, why the call could not have been. And then he can raise all kinds of hell. And I know that we'll all do that coming up in just a little bit. Okay, so here's the highlights of the match. Like I said, there's only 2 of them, but nevertheless, there's still highlights. And the first one is the progression that led to the PK, as it was called by Mike and Jason once again here on 92.9 The Game in the Odyssey app.
Now it's Cobb heading it back to the halfway line. There's a collision between Firmino and Lovett's play on, and then it's kicked down the middle and given away, but taken right back by Schlieff, and then he loses it to Boyd, who streaks down the middle for Nashville. Boyd into the attacking third for Mukhtar. Brad off his line. Mukhtar tries to chip him. Penalty on Brad. Chris Penso, the VAR, will now be teed up to make an important decision here in the 38th minute. The check is complete, and the penalty kick will stand. Action at the goal to our right as we cross into the 40th minute of a scoreless match. Mukhtar standing to the left of the ball. Guzan in the center of his net. Whistle by Fisher. Mukhtar up to the ball. Strikes it. Scores. 1-0 to Nashville in the 40th minute. Now let's see how Atlanta United responds, a team that has scored only 1 goal on the road this year.
And so that was how it was involving, that's the long version. That was how Nashville got on the board to make it 1-0. And then Atlanta United, they got the opportunity to put the equalizer in the back of the net in the form of Bartosz Schlieff. So Schlieff gets off the schneid. Say that 10 times fast. Here's your equalizer, courtesy once again, 92.9 The Game in the Odyssey app.
Moyamba off the throw, spinning to the far touchline, now spinning back towards the midfield. And dropping it back to Hernandez. He'll roll it to Rios. Left corner of the 18. Rios then stuffed by Gador, by Cobb to Rios. Final ball bounces away from Saba into the far corner. Saba's got it. Dribbling on Mayer. Saba's cross blocked. Deflects to the penalty spot. Over the head of Schaffelberg to Lennon. He crosses it again. And then it's volleyed away from the penalty spot by Davis. Stab forward though by Schlieff to Moyamba. Left corner of the 18. Tristan. Dribble on Davis. Centering pass. Schlieff. Shot! Score! Right back in it in the 56th minute. Bartek Schlieff. His first Atlanta United goal. We're even at 1.
Yaksemash, how you doing? So that was the cool part involving all of that. So it ends up being a 1-1 draw. And that was, once again, thanks to our friends at 92.9 The Game in the Odyssey app. Okay. Dime store analysis. Might be Dollar Tree analysis at this point. So let me go through the numbers from the stats on the day, and we'll go through some of the numbers courtesy of our friends at SofaScore about some of the initial numbers that were given when it came to Atlanta United's efforts going up against Nashville on the early day. How was it for you guys traveling by? How many of you traveled day of? What was it like? When did you leave to get up there for the incredibly early kick? So let me know. What was travel like? What was parking like? Was it as silly and stupid and crazy as it traditionally is? Okay, so possession by the end of it all, 52-48 Atlanta. XG 1.37 to 0.72. 10 total shots for Atlanta United, 12 for Nashville. 4 saves for Brad, none for Joe Willis. 6-1 in corners. Atlanta United, by the way, 14 of the 23 fouls on the day. Sure. Passes, 428 to 399. 13 tackles for Nashville compared to 4 for Atlanta United. Free kicks, 14 free kicks on 14 fouls. And 8 free kicks for Atlanta United. 2 yellow cards each. Total shots, 12-10 to Nashville. Shots on target, 5 to Nashville. And 1 for Atlanta United. 1 of them hit the woodwork. Off target, 5-3 for Atlanta. 4 blocks each. 8 shots inside the 18 for Nashville. And that led to all the saves for Brad. Shots outside the box, 6-4. Big chances. Nashville had 1. Through balls, Nashville had 1. Atlanta had 28 of the 51 total touches inside the penalty area. Foul in the final third was 3-2. Let's see. 30 long balls to 27 for Atlanta United. 8 out of 19 on crosses compared to 5 of 23. And the duels went to Nashville's way. winning 33 of 56 on the ground compared to 23 for Atlanta. But Atlanta ends up winning 60% in the air, 25-17. Successful on the dribble 11 times compared to 6. Total saves prevented, 0.2 goals, and that was where it ended up for 31 clearances for Atlanta United on the day compared to 19 for Nashville. Individual numbers, once again, looking at the lineups. You had Brad in net, left to right, Hernandez, Stian Gregerson, Noah Cobb, Brooks Lennon. We do not have any kind of a Noah Cobb update. And you end up now, like I said, wondering what the back line is going to be. Is it going to be Efra and Stian? Is it going to be Efra and Luis? What's it going to look like to get Efra minutes? Does that mean that Efra starts against Charleston? We said we'll try and figure this out and sort it out as we go. Ronald, Stian, Noah, and Brooks. But Noah and Gonzalo Pineda said this after the match, that, Noah being Noah, he's like, Skip, I'm okay. Just, the equivalent of, let me shake it off and I'll get back out there for you. But, and then that shows what Noah wants to do for this club. Love you, Noah, but look, if you're having problems, and it was weird. I don't know. I've got to go back and look, but it looked like Surridge, and I've literally got to go back to the Zapruder film and see how this was. It looked like Surridge tried to step back and hip check him with his left hip and then step back and try to bump him. And as he's stepping back, he ends up planting his left foot on the top of Noah's foot. It was weird. It was like a hip check, a step back, and a stomp. All three happening at the same time, and then obviously Noah goes down. Like I said, we don't know. We don't have anything on Noah's physical state at the moment. But Noah wanted to get back out there. Of course, that's Noah being Noah. William Bob, Bartos Sleesh in your midfield. Caleb on the left wing, Nick Firmino in the middle, Saba, and then Daniel Rios up top. So Opta once again called it a 4-2-3-1. And this is what also drives me crazy. Look, it's a 4-3-3, people. But once again, I know we talk about formations being something of a construct, but it was a 4-3-3 to start. And then the whistle goes and everything goes out the window. Backline all had 6s, high 6s. Brad had a 7.3. Ronald a 6.7, Stian Gregerson in 45 minutes with a yellow card, or 65 minutes for Stian, 10 clearances for Stian Gregerson on the afternoon, 1 block, won all 3 of his duels in the air, and was perfect passing. I did not know this. 42 touches, 29 of 29 passing for Stian Gregerson on the afternoon. That's crazy. I can't remember the last time I saw a number like that. Noah, 72 minutes, 2 clearances, a block. 3 of 5 in the air, and I think that having Stian helps that out. 32 touches, 72% passing at 21 out of 29, two successful long balls in 6 attempts. Muyumba and Bartos Sleesh. Tristan Muyumba had a 7.4 on the afternoon, and 84 minutes for Tristan, 1 assist, 72 touches, 91% passing, 52 of 57. 1 long ball to his credit. 3 for 3 on the dribble, and he was 5 of 8 on his duels. 1 4 on the ground, 1 in the air. He 2 clearances, a pick, and a tackle for Stian Gregerson. Bartos Sleesh, and I know that we're all hoping that this might be getting Sleesh off the schneid. So you end up with a full 90 for Bart. I don't think that Bart's going to play. He might be in the 18 in Charleston. I don't think he'll play unless it's an absolute emergency and it's a break glass situation. 71 touches, 82% passing, 3 of 7 on long balls, 5 for 5 in the air for Bart Sleesh. Once again, it was 2 clearances, 5 interceptions, and 1 successful dribble to go with the goal. Caleb had a 7.0 on the day, and Caleb had 65 touches, playing the full 90. Once again, I don't think that Caleb will be starting in Charleston. I think he might be also break glass in case of emergency. 65 touches, 33 of 42 passing, 79%. 4 key passes, 2 of 4 crossing, 1 of 2 on his long balls, 2 of 4 in the air, 1 duel on the ground, was fouled once, 2 clearances, and 3 interceptions for Caleb. Nick Firmino in the middle. I liked what I saw out of Nick. And Nick played the 45, and that's why I think that Nick will be a part of things in Open Cup. 22 touches, 12 of 14 passing in the first 45 minutes, 86%. Won a couple of ground duels, fouled twice for Nick there in the middle. Saba on the afternoon had a 7, played the full 90. That's why I don't think that Saba will be active. And once again, in case of emergency, break glass. 35 touches, 11 of 17 passing, had the 1 cross, had the 1 key pass. He had a dual 1 on the ground, a dual 1 in the air, had a successful dribble, 2 picks and a dribble passed. And then Daniel Rios up top had a 6.9 and 35 touches, 15 to 21 passing, 4 of 8. Daniel Rios on his duels, 9 of 17 on the day, 5 of 9 in the air, 4 of 8 on the ground. Had a clearance, had a tackle, and 3 dribbles passed. And so that's what you had with Atlanta United with the numbers from our friends at SofaScore. So to a point that was made Michael Valverde late. He says, I don't remember Mukhtar being such a whiner. He approached the ref no less than 10 times about everything, feels like a tactic and needs to be carded for it. And this is one of the other things. Michael, remind me of this when Bart comes in because of the notes that I was taking having to do with Jordan rules. And Hani is into that Jordan rule stage now. I wanted to get into, and if there's something that I'm missing when it comes to what we're talking about with Bart, let me know. I wanted to get into simulations and diving. I wanted to get into the no sub thing that happened where it looked like Nashville wanted to sub and then they didn't, and then they did, and the player came back on the field and the sub didn't come back out. The sub didn't take the position on the field, that kind of craziness. And yeah, I've got it listed as Hani rules, basically, when it comes to Mukhtar. So there was a moment in Will, the Nashville Diving Club makes a last-minute bid for the Olympics. Yeah, I mean, he did look like he really did look like he was a Greg Louganis kind of a moment. All right, so the not so way back machine. I want to go back to a moment, and once again, this is all a part of leading into Bart coming up at the top of the hour. I want to go back to a moment in 2020. And this is courtesy of our friends at Fox Sports Ohio. You'll hear Neil Sika and Jordan Angeli on the call. This was Decision Day 2020 when Atlanta United was in Columbus. And I don't know how many of you remember this particular moment, but this was a play that could have swung this match in Columbus in 2020, and it's kind of along the same lines of what we're discussing here with Nashville. Atlanta United is on offense, once again, courtesy of our friends at Fox Sports Ohio and Major League Soccer. Neil Sika and Jordan Angeli on the call.
4th in terms of possession this season, this truncated year. As that ball in behind, and Gallagher with room coming out, sliding in, taking down John Gallagher with a penalty given.
Things in this great run by Gallagher to stay on side there, a little bent run. And initially it looked like he had slipped right there. And he did slip. There's no chance he's getting to that ball, but he gets taken out in the end, even with losing his footing. As he chops it back here, both feet slip. Aloy Room takes him out.
Is it clear and obvious or anything to overturn this? That's the question. No penalty.
So what we've learned, and there are some national sports folks who like to change their opinions on what is and what isn't as the wind blows and as their social media will determine. Hang on just a second. Let me hydrate here. All right. So back in 2020, we had that moment in Columbus where John Gallagher is coming in from the attacking left-hand side. So Gallagher's coming in from the attacking left. Gallagher slips. Eloy Room extends his leg and is trying to, take out Gallagher. No play to the ball whatsoever. And that is given as, a penalty on the field, and then VAR reverses it. Why VAR reversed it, I have no idea. But you have in the moment in Nashville, one of the we'll get into like I said, we'll get into what the national folks are thinking. You have a moment in the Atlanta-Nashville game where Hani Mukhtar swear to whichever god you wish. He's looking for contact. He starts his, and I know that there are some of you that took the stills and went Zapruder and helped out the process on the 280 character app. To me, like I said, this is to me. Hani Mukhtar, in that instance, is looking for contact or looking to give the impression of contact. He starts his movement long before Brad is at the point of collision, or what, the point of impact, I guess, since it wasn't a collision. The point of impact. Hani's already started falling down pre-impact with Brad. John Gallagher slips in 2020. Eloy Room is looking for contact. Eloy Room extends his right leg and is looking to take John Gallagher out. Given as a penalty by Ismail Elfath on the field, wiped out by VAR. I don't know who the VAR was on that day. Decision day 2020. So I get it now, I think. If you are charging inside the 18, possession in front of you, you slip in the process of possession and trying to put a shot on goal. The opposing keeper extends his right leg as he wants to try and take you out. That's a slip and not a penalty. If you have someone who is diving, and that is what Hani Mukhtar did, he started his movement before Brad got there. Literally, Hani Mukhtar is over the top. He is already looking to hit the pool with the can opener and make the big splash with the cannonball. He is ready to swan dive into the pool and try to figure out what his time is going to be in the 4x100 IM. So he starts his move. Brad is on his way out. The ball is going away from the attacking point. The ball is not making its way in a 45-degree angle from the point of contact toward the net at all. It is going straight. It is going out of play. Hani Mukhtar following the ball out of play. Starting his move / dive before Brad gets there, and Hani clips Brad as Brad is trying to make a play for the ball. So I get it now. I get it. I understand. I completely and totally understand. So if you slip and the keeper's trying to take you out in that process and you're trying to make a play toward the net, that's not a penalty. That is a slip, I guess. No penalty as the keeper is trying to take you out. But if you dive, which seriously, I mean, you look at the still that's out there, and I forget who it was, but it might have been Will, or it might have been another one of our plus ones, and whoever it was, great on you for Zaprudering it. But you literally see Hani over the top. And like I said, he makes contact with Brad with his feet as he's on his way past Brad. The ball's not making a play toward the net. Ball's going straight. Ball's going toward the ad boards. Hani's going toward the ad boards. He has cleared Brad except for the back axle, and that's a penalty. Okay, I understand it now. Yeah, I completely understand it now. Like I said, that's why we've got Bart coming on in 10 minutes. But going back in time and being reminded of the John Gallagher penalty that was reversed, that because of the slip, some folks in the national media said, oh, not a penalty. But this time around, because of the diving element, this one is a penalty. It's good to know that folks are consistent in their viewpoints. There are national folks who, like I said, they sit there and they will take an opinion and they will go, oh, wins over here today. Oh, wins over here today. And you do enough research, you know who we're talking about. But yeah, so I get it now. So a slip and a keeper trying to block you out, that's a penalty that gets wiped off the board. But a dive and the ball not even heading toward the net and clipping somebody on the way over, I get it now. I really get it now. Yes, and David, yes, Brooks Lennon's a diver. Absolutely. Remember that one too. Brooks Lennon's a diver. So Brooks Lennon's a diver, and Hani Mukhtar gets Hani Mukhtar rules. Bart Keeler coming up in 10 minutes. And this was the other thing about Nashville. Now that I'm on this. Nashville is just disappointing as a club on the field right now. They're just not very good offensively. And all they want to do, seemingly, is figure out where that line is and where the fouls get called and try to continue. When they find the line, they get the fouls called, then they kind of continue to try to push the line, and keep getting fouls called. There were times in that match. And like I said, this is separate from the result. This is separate from all the other conversations that we've had. But you had a team that literally would try and go down at the slightest bit of contact and try and get a foul called. And a lot of the time it worked. It's disappointing that you want to try to do that as a philosophy. Because like I said, Nashville just is not very good. And they are at a point now where they want to goad officials into making calls. And Hani Mukhtar specifically, slight contact, flop, dive, go down, what have you. And it's disappointing. Like I said, and Alex, like I said, this is aside from the result. This is aside from the result and what happened and shared points and all that. This is about them philosophically. This has nothing to do with the result that happened on Saturday. When they feel that their only recourse is to do what they were doing, and they ended up getting the calls, like I said, this is another part of the discussion that I wanted to get into with Bart. When you get the calls that you're getting, because Bart was there, and so he got to see it in the supporters section. And by the way, sidebar, to the lot of you that stayed for the unified match, I give you full credit. And I love the fact that you guys did that. I love that you guys stayed in the building and cheered on the unified team as they beat Nashville. Really cool of you to do that. But for Nashville as a club to do what they're doing philosophically, I mean, yeah, you're going to do it till it doesn't work anymore. But for them to feel like their only recourse is to fall down, go boom, it's really disappointing. And even more disappointing when officials get successfully manipulated by that kind of behavior. Like I said, when Bart comes in 5 minutes or so, we'll talk about it and talk about other things. But I wanted to bring back the John Gallagher call from 2020 so we all know where the line is. Tongue firmly planted in cheek, #sarcasm font. So you're slipping. Keeper comes out. He wants to take you out. You're in possession of the ball. It's right there in front of you. You slip. You go down early. Keeper makes contact. Penalty wiped off the board. But a swan dive with you and the ball not going anywhere close to anything close to the near post, sure, got you covered. That was just, yeah. So, like I said, I wanted to get into that as a part of all of our discussion this morning. Jordan rules, substitutions, all these kinds of things, windows, all that kind of stuff. So before Bart comes in, let me say hello to everybody who's in here this morning. Morning, Alex. Morning, Will. Let's see. Morning, Emilio. Let's see. Morning, Hutch. Morning, Shiva. And let's see. Where am I going here? Morning, David. And like I said, I apologize if I mentioned somebody more than once. Morning, Tom. Schrodinger's penalty. What we'll do, Tom, about no handball call on Arsenal's winner. What we will do, sir, is as we are fading into the discussion about the Premier League, when Drew hopefully can find some quiet space, where Drew talks about his United and I talk about the other 19. Dale Johnson once again mentioned should the winner have been knocked out because of Gabriel Jesus before the Kai Havertz goal. And so the goal stands overturned, rejected at the monitor. And so there's that one. We've got the Semedo challenge from Liverpool. We have penalty overturns. But with Bart specifically, more than anything, I wanted to just kind of get into philosophical stuff. And when it came to what it looks like and just dealing with folks. So, and when Bart comes in, we'll talk about that. But yes, remind me on that one. Morning, Alex. Let's see. Morning, Derek. Yeah, Derek says Mukhtar gets just a 10 for the dive alone. Morning, Michael Valverde. Michael was big on Jamal. And Will, and that is a majority opinion, I'm sure. Let's see. Emilio and Tom and Abby, good morning. No worries about the lateness. And yeah, the Equinox went very, very well. We mentioned the Academy beating Orlando. They were down 1-0, came back to score 2 goals in about 5 minutes. And one was on a great header by Mason Peacock. The other was an OG late. And Atlanta United's Academy ends up winning that one 2-1. Go back and listen if you have. Go back and listen if you have the time. Go back onto the SDH network and listen to the matchup with the twos, specifically the second 45 minutes with Jason and Maddie. They were up there at Wicks Family Field and Joe Davis Stadium for that one, but it was stock craziness between these two. But yeah, go back and listen to the last 45 minutes. It was nuts. Morning, David. Morning, Dell. Just got back from Nashville. Yes, it is. It is a late night. And Emilio, you know what? You're not alone. That a lot of the replacements, well, I wouldn't say a lot, but I think there were replacement officials that made a case to be considered to be a part of the reindeer games that currently are the PSRA. But the PSRA pretty much went insular, and this is what I will continue to discuss. I fear that this new deal made them more insular, and it's going to be that much more difficult to remove officials that truly are at the bottom of the table when it comes to observation percentages, successes, grades, all those kinds of things. You will have your Country Joe Wests and your Angel Hernandezes that are a part of things with PSRA, and I fear that this deal that was signed will reinforce that. It will be very, very difficult to remove these individuals from what we're seeing involving officials on a day-to-day basis. And that's the disappointing part of all of this. Let's see. So morning, Wiley. Let's see. Trying to see if there's anybody that I missed. No, I think that's it. So, yeah. Well, and Emilio, that is true. Yes. Romper Room. Well, Romper Room used a. Romper Room had like the spinning wheel lollipop kind of a deal, and you're supposed to kind of focus in on that, and that was what your news review, Romper Room was all about. So, but no, it's Romper Room, Romper Room. I think used the spinning king size lollipop looking thing, and so that was where all of these references come from. But no, Will, I think that legitimately, this deal with the PSRA is going to create safety for those that grade poorly. I just do. And I think it's going to be retirement or boosting those individuals from being on the field and having them go up into VAR, which is seemingly just as scary at times. That you're going to have, those kinds of things happening. I legitimately do. And I mean, you can say it's the pessimist in me, but I think that this deal between PSRA and Pro has reinforced the safety of the individuals that we see on a weekly basis inside of Major League Soccer. Yeah, Del Pineda's coming. Yeah, he is. So it's all it is all there. Bart coming in whenever he can pop in here. Yeah, so we'll get into all of your thoughts involving the Hani Mukhtar thing and all of that. But no, Will, you are going to have, I fear that the folks that we see, and we know who are the ones where we sit there and we're going, okay, all right, that either make it about themselves, they want to get their airtime, the calls are just all over the place. Those folks, I fear, in this deal reinforced their job security. It's like the scene at the end of The Secret of My Success when Fred Gwynn's Donald Davenport character is there. They're all there at the table. They're all there at the table and they're discussing the takeover of Primrose. And Fred Gwynn's character goes, some of you can stay. Some of you are going to have to go. But some of you who've been real helpful, including yourselves, can stay. That's the kind of deal I think that we've got here. Everyone that was integral to the deal is where we are. Everyone integral to the deal gets to hang, gets to stay, gets to do their thing. But the rest of you, some of you, got to go. But like I said, the insular nature of that deal, I think, sadly, is where we are. All right, so it's after 10 o'clock, and we get to see the new studio curtain with Bart. See look at the new studio curtain. He's got the logo up over his left shoulder and everything. Studio right. How does it feel having a blue curtain behind you? Artificially, yes, but still, nevertheless, you're dressing up the background and making sure that folks see what's going on with Soccer for USPOD. What was the final decider in making sure that you did something like this?
Anyway, now I can hear you better.
There we go. Okay, boost your volume. Boost that volume, sir.
Done.
Hit me.
Hopefully.
Okay, we're getting there. You might have. There we go. Give it a shot. All right. So what's the mug this morning?
It is just a Vera Bradley designed mug.
Oh, okay. Because the boss has her Vera Bradley has her own Vera Bradley gear. So I know of which Vera Bradley you're discussing. So
we have a lot of showrooms at my work that have Vera Bradley, specifically one that was kind enough to let us kind of raid their stockpile and take home some things for very cheap. Let's just put it that way.
Wow. Okay. Got it. All right. So what's it like having the background now? What was the decider about having the background as opposed to letting everybody see the
I saw Nico have his and I was like, oh, that's cool. I should do that.
Like I said, it's all about making everything all dressy and nice. I don't know if you had the chance, since you're kind of flying around and actually trying to do real world stuff and balance that with your appearances that you have now. But now that you're back on Mondays and you have told the real world what's going on, it's like, no, I have to be here to discuss things. But I went into a couple of different things. I went into going backwards. I went into the PSRA deal with Pro and saying I think that we now have an insular behavior involving a union, making sure that we keep individuals at grade low. And I fear that's where we're going to be with the new union deal. But I wanted to get into what you saw, and I can say this because there are pictures of you dropping $72 on an alleged chicken sandwich.
It was $12
up at Geodis. So did you take the bus or did you park?
No, I drove up Friday and then drove back after the game on Saturday. So
how far away did you have to park?
Well, the supporters tailgate lot is not a very far walk from the stadium. Honestly, the toughest part of the walk is climbing the mountain on which the stadium sits.
That is absolutely true.
And really, we were kind of, I guess, across the street from the park where the Nashville supporters tailgate.
Okay.
So yeah, it wasn't really far away.
Okay, just checking. We played in the first hour. Mike's call on the Hani Mukhtar penalty and the VAR and the goal. We played that from inside the building. I mean, obviously you're in the supporters section. And so if I'm not mistaken, it was headed your way, if I'm not wrong.
Mm-hmm.
So, but it was opposite that corner where they normally stash you. I know that there was hue and cry and pitchforks and tiki torches up there in the supporters section, but now that you've had a chance to think about what you saw when you were in the supporters section and now had a chance to look at it, walk me through this process as to why it could have been called a penalty. We'll start there. Why could this have been called a penalty? And I know that you're going to have digs, but I mean, I want you to look at this like specifically as an official. The digs are going to be fine. We'll have plenty of time for that. But why would this have been called a penalty?
Well, I think it's more likely he was fouled before the thing with Goose. And I also think that Goose, you can make the argument, impeded his ability to get to the ball. And Goose didn't really get the ball in a manner that would be kosher in other ways. So I understand why the penalty kick was called. I think it obviously also could have not been called. And I think that had the call on the field been no Hani dove, as Nashville, I don't know where they learned this, John, but apparently the snipers on the top of the stadium were taking out Nashville players all game because these guys were flopping everywhere.
Absolutely.
And the referee, Drew Fisher, being a Canadian, doesn't really understand this because Canadians would never flop ever. They are the most trustworthy and nice people. So, he just assumed that meant that they were getting fouled, even though they were flopping everywhere, every which way, in an effort to appease their 12,000 fans in the stands. So it was probably, in my opinion, not a great penalty kick call. But I understand why it was called because, again, I think there could have been a foul. If you look at it, there's probably a foul. I think it was Noah Cobb before he dove over Goose. And then you can obviously make the argument that Goose was going to impede his route to the ball.
All right. So then go the other way and make the argument for why this could not have been called a penalty.
Oh, it's a complete and total dive. Goose makes no contact. He's not really Hani. I mean, look, and I'm sorry, I'm a little, I'm still grieving this morning.
Mm-hmm.
If Bukayo Saka doesn't get a penalty kick call for actual contact from a goalkeeper inside the penalty area, but Hani Mukhtar can get a penalty called when the goalkeeper doesn't touch him really.
Mm-hmm.
Then I don't know how that's equitable. Again, I think Drew Fisher bought every single complaint from Nashville hook, line, and sinker all match.
Mm-hmm.
And this was another example of a dive, an embellishment that he said, "Oh, that's definitely a foul." I don't think he had a good game, to be honest. I thought, again, there were a lot of incidents where he was more than happy to give Nashville the call that they wanted. So, and despite what those fans would say about our team, we weren't the ones diving everywhere.
Right.
Theirs were. And apparently that's what you learn up in Nashville when, your team is also hot dog water and that hot dog somehow also costs $12.
See, $72 for an alleged chicken sandwich and a hot dog.
Yeah, I gotta be honest. That was not it was a chicken burger.
Chicken
The
burger.
patty was not as big as the from package pita bread thing that round that I had.
Okay.
No sauce on it. It was just cilantro and onion as a topper, maybe a little sauce, but it needed sauce. It was very dry. The potato chips that they served with it were decent. The seasoned potato chips, like the pub chips type thing.
Okay.
But yeah, the sandwich itself was
suboptimal.
Yeah. And hey, but I got a refillable soda for $9.
Okay. All right. So now walk me through the idea of, and I also made a point to go back and play the John Gallagher moment from Decision Day back in 2020, where Gallagher is coming in with possession toward Eloy Room, and Gallagher slips on his way as he's continuing to charge. Room basically expands his person to try to take Gallagher out as Gallagher is slipping. That ended up going from penalty from Ismail Elfath to being overruled by VAR. So if I understand it correctly, if you're slipping, it's not a penalty if the keeper makes contact with you in the process of the slip and the play. But if you're diving or embellishing and you're going over and the back axle hits the keeper on your way by where you've made no contact until that point, that is a penalty. Am I right?
I guess so. I mean, I guess we're rewarding players for freewheeling at 12 seconds before the keeper even starts his dive, to be honest.
And
Del, I want to say Del. I didn't get the barbecue sandwich. I don't know. I just didn't see it. Sorry. I was also looking to eat on the cheap. So
then let me ask you this: if it comes to, should there be an allowance made in a call where both the player and the ball are not heading toward the net itself? Because Mukhtar plays the ball out to his left, away from Brad, and it's the motion of the offense is going away from the net, as is Hani. Ball's going away from the net toward the ad boardings, to the ad boards. Mukhtar is diving toward the ad boards also. There is no movement in that 45-degree angle toward the net. Should there have been an allowance made for that activity in this process? At least by VAR in review.
No.
Okay.
Because if it's a foul, it's a foul.
Okay.
This is where I do think that I would love to see some change in the laws of the game that allow us to give non-penalty kick. Maybe it's an indirect free kick inside the box for things that are not obvious goal scoring opportunities, but it's also hard to argue that that's not an obvious goal scoring opportunity inside the penalty area when I know you said his play initially was not toward goal, but he's still 13 yards out, 14 yards out from goal, with no person really coming from behind him to catch up to it. So I don't know. I get what you're saying. I agree in principle, but I think when you look at the laws of the game, it's just foul, and it's a direct free kick foul inside the penalty area. Unfortunately.
Okay. I want to get into Hani rules here. Jordan rules, Hani rules, insert your star player here.
Which we don't get, by the way. I want that to be before we start this conversation, I'm going to echo Jason Longshore's I don't even know how long. I mean, I guess it's been going on for as long as Atlanta United has been in the league. Somehow Atlanta United doesn't quite get the benefit of the star treatment the way that other stars in this league get. And Hani got every benefit he could want. And Almada and Gigi weren't out there, but it seemed like we needed to have the most, obvious fouls in order for them to be called. And it's kind of disappointing.
Yeah, and especially with some of the individuals that end up, in center circle calling these matches. But when it comes to, say, Jordan rules, Hani rules, star engagement, those kinds of things, I have about 9 different directions I can take this. But the idea that stars, even if they do not wear the captain's armband, can chirp at an official and can continue to try to sit there and figure out where the line is and push the line even further and further and further. When it comes to your observations, I would ask, why do you think some stars get it and others don't? I would ask, why certain officials feel compelled in these situations to feel like, oh, the star fell, therefore it must have been a foul, where that mindset and kowtowing comes from. I'm trying to get into the head of an official here and sit there and say, well, obviously he did it, therefore something must have been happened. He must have been aggrieved. I'm just trying to figure out where the Jordan rules come from in these situations.
Yeah, it's a good question, because I think this is where the soccer lawmakers are kind of moving, right? We, again, have the game that a team has to have a captain denoted with the armband. We talked about Euros requiring that only the captain is allowed to talk to, for the most part, talk to the official. Mm-hmm. I think the problem is a lot of times we see these stars as default captains. And I think that's an incorrect way to look at it as a referee, because they're not. And a lot of times they're not the captain for a very good reason. And I mean, like, look, not saying that they're good or bad, but like, right. I don't need Almada being our captain when we need someone else to have that conversation.
Others are better mouthpieces, and you want the stars to focus on their job.
Exactly. Now, some of them, like Leo Messi, should be the captain, because Leo Messi will have clout over any referee ever in the world. Mm-hmm. Because he's, the greatest player who's ever laced him up and played this game.
Right.
But yeah, I think it's a great conundrum, because you obviously want to listen to the players as a referee. You want to be able to get feedback from players, because they're going to give you insights into things that you may not fully have, because you're not the ones, while you're out there in the field, you're not experiencing it. But there's I get this at least once a game, ref, they're pushing me, and I'm like, yeah, I'm looking for it. And they're like, well, they're like, well, no, they really are. And I want to say, well, so are you. Ref, they were holding me in the penalty area. Yes, I saw you also giving him a bear hug back. So, it's that's the reality. Is we need to have a little bit of an open conversation, or at least open to receiving feedback. But when it comes to legitimately discussing calls or decisions, that doesn't need to be a group project from one team or the other. I know Messi gets to invite, the board of directors out there to have any conversation with the referee. When you see Busquets, Alba, Gressel on top of Messi, all surrounding a referee. And, that is something that I think needs to be changed, because those incidents aren't me as a player giving a feedback like, come on, ref, he kicked me. That's them trying to influence a call and a decision from the referee, either in that moment or moments later. And we do need to have safeguards, because it was supposed to be like, oh, don't do it. And it clearly hasn't worked, right? The crowding of the referee and all those protocols that we had in place hasn't worked. So hopefully the captain has to have an armband and only the captain can argue with the referee. Hopefully those things help with these kind of issues, because you're right. Like, a lot of stars do get an allowance, it seems, to be able to have that conversation almost every single time that they want to. Hani did it, I don't even know how many times. But
it started early, and he found the line, and he kept pushing the line, because that's where Drew Fisher will let him go.
Exactly. And the reality is, I think the captain should be the only person allowed to do that, because it's not Hani getting fouled, looking at the referee, like throwing his arms up, like, come on, man. Like, those are going to happen. It's the trying to converse and coerce the referee into decisions later on. And hey, he got a penalty kick out of it. Still wasn't enough for Nashville. And, they're all 12,000 fans left a little unsatisfied.
How full was that building, by the way?
Well, it's full of Atlanta fans.
Well, I know that.
Which
but
seems to be a theme for them.
Yeah.
They're lucky.
A lot of folks head north.
I don't look, okay, to be serious, I'm not trying to throw shade at them in this particular comment, but I do think it's rather sad that your supporter section is not as full as the away supporters who have traveled to your stadium.
And you guys could be heard, by the way, on audio.
Yeah, I mean, I was watching it back, or the highlights, and you could hear things. It wasn't just the like 2 or 3 supporter sections we had in the 200 level, way up in the corner. You could see fans all throughout the 200 section. You could see fans. You saw a lot of red and black on the 100 section. But John, as I do, that stadium with the old Silverbacks Park trick, where you have the multicolored seats, it makes it look like there are more people there than there are. The 200 section across from us was very sparsely populated, and so was the supporter section. And you could really see that because they have the bleachers, and you can see if the bleacher section is full or not. It wasn't empty. It definitely wasn't 28,000, which was the announced attendance.
Well, that's tickets sold as opposed to butts and seats.
Right. And I do think that's a little sad for a 1 p.m. Saturday kickoff, because weather was great. We didn't have the rain that we thought we were going to get, and it was great temperatures. It wasn't really that hot out at all. So that's a little disappointing, especially for, what is supposed to be a rivalry game. But I also understand that they're frustrated with the club right now that just fired their coach and a team that's underperforming. On the other hand, Atlanta fans keep showing up to our games, and maybe, I know some people think that's a great testament to our fan base, but maybe we should be a little more mindful of what our attendance is saying to the front office and the team on the field.
Simulation. I wanted to get into that too. I have my notes as to what I want to talk about with Bart. It's like Bart, and then I have like stuff right here.
Simulation.
Simulation.
Did this happen in an important matchup? Oh, by the way, my voice is still shot from yelling "shoot the ball." Literally, John, we chanted "shoot the ball" at the team right before Bart scored. So they listened. Great for us. We're out coaching Pineda over here.
Shoot. There's your shot. All right.
And then I had to yell at a TV yesterday. And yell at Man City fans who somehow were in our bar for some reason. I don't know what's wrong with these people, by the way, coming to another team's home bar to cheer for your team when you have a home bar in this darn city.
I mean, come on.
But they're not really fans. They're just, fanboys. And that's who City fans are.
All right. So when it comes to simulation / dives, are you seeing what I guess, when it comes to the amount of it on the matches that you or your friends are center reffing, have you seen over the last handful of years, have you seen more attempts at simulation than you had in the past? Is this a growing trend that you've been able to see, or is it just kind of there as an element of the game?
No, I actually think that it's gotten a little better recently at the top level because of VAR, and it's a little futile to try to be overtly simulation. We've also, as referees, been instructed a little bit more on how to deal with simulation. It's been a while, but we are empowered to give yellow cards a little bit more frequently for simulation. So I think it's gotten a little bit better, but I think, to an issue that I'm sure we'll talk about, in leagues that do not have VAR, you're still going to see it because you can game the referee and find a way to get an advantage out of it, because you do not have VAR to review it. And so, again, I think the Hani call, there's the slightest bit of contact, so therefore it's a penalty kick. But that contact is because the dude started diving 27 yards before he even reached the ball.
Correct. Yeah.
I mean, listen, John, I'm sorry. That was embarrassing. It wasn't like he dove over Brad. He dove
over
one step into the penalty area, 2-footed flop over. And I think it's really embarrassing to need that to find a goal against a team that's really good at not winning games. So
well, and Yeah, well, and what we got to see was that seemed to be that's their MO across the board. It's not just
Yeah.
something where it's
And
like,
Drew Fisher let it happen, John.
yeah.
I mean, you were there. There were so many things that it was, and then they didn't get a call that was obviously simulation. They cried about,
Of course.
and that was really frustrating too, because it was like, buddy, you knew what you were doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like I said, it seems to be a part of their MO now that, if they can't get anything squared away offensively, then they're going to try and goad folks into whatever call they can try and get and whatever they can get out of the officials. The no sub thing. Go for it. Yeah, one more thing.
I appreciate a little bit that they are desperate to try to get an advantage in the game, which is something that, you have to understand. They're frustrated. They're not just in the game, but overall the season. So they are taking steps to try to game their advantage.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I mean, literally, I've seen it like 98 times and it hasn't changed. The no sub thing, that was an odd stretch of the match. And I was still trying to figure out where, and if I remembered it correctly, it was substitution made, then player goes off, substituting player does not come on, even though he's standing right there with the fourth. Substituted player that is supposed to be substituted off comes back onto the field, and then he comes back off once the substitution comes back in. It was an odd stretch, and I'm trying to figure out what the hell was going on with that.
Yeah, it is weird because substitutions are allowed basically at the discretion of the referee, right? We say, yeah, you can sub. Obviously, we're not going to say don't sub, but like we basically get to decide, yes, this is the stoppage of play in which we're going to sub. But sometimes, and I this happens a lot more at the grassroots level for me, a coach will be like, no, I don't want to sub right now because, I'm looking at them like, oh, they're up there to sub. And they're like, no, I don't want to sub because maybe it's a corner kick or a free kick. And they're like, I don't want to sub right now. Or they change their mind about something or something like that. I don't know what that situation was because it felt like, oh, wait, no, we don't want to sub right now. And then it was like, wait, just kidding. We do want to sub right now.
Yeah.
And Drew Fisher may have said, no, you can't sub right now. And then he said, okay, maybe you can sub right now. I don't really know, John, but I was also like, what's going on here?
You were as thoroughly confused as I was.
It was weird, right? It was like, okay, so what are you doing?
What are we doing? So yeah, I wanted to get those particular elements through here. Like I said, I don't know if our resident United,
maybe he thought it was like Georgia soccer rules where you can only sub on your possession throw-in.
Yeah, and so I said, I don't know what the hell was going on with it, but I wanted to ask. Also, the Gabriel Jesus possible handball before the Kai Havertz goal, sir.
Yeah. Watching this live, I didn't even notice that it would be a handball, right? I think that was the first thing. Is like I watched it live and I was like, yeah, he just chested it down. Obviously, you see the replay and it does hit his arm. I think there are multiple things that went into ultimately not giving this as a handball. One, I think this is I think they could have done this sooner, which is going to be a theme that the Premier League needs to get its act in order in totality. But the theme of this was, I know. The referee was called to the monitor to make the decision. So this is the referee, the center referee, being able to make a decision with video evidence based on how he has been calling or sees the game. And for him, I think he saw a ball hit kind of that sleeve boundary area, which we kind of have been given as anything after the armpit, which we kind of use as a sleeve, even though most of the time the sleeves go beyond the armpit. That plus the arm being very much against the body. I think those were kind of the two factors that allowed Oliver to stick with his decision that it wasn't a handball, right? I'm going to agree with it because I am an Arsenal fan, and we deserve all the breaks that we could get, and still couldn't get the breaks that we needed. But I think it's one of those where I like the fact that the center referee was the one who made the ultimate decision based on the video review, not. I think it was Stuart Atkinson, right? In the VAR.
Stuart Atwell, yeah.
Atwell, sorry.
Yeah, Stuart Atwell was
One of the
VAR,
Stuart.
yes.
Not the VAR re-refereeing. And that's what we do. The one thing that I will say about the Premier League is I don't think they do VAR correctly. And I think the legitimate gripe is that a lot of times it feels like the VAR is the one re-refereeing the game, as opposed to, there are some things that the VAR, their job is to get it to make those decisions. Like, was he in an offside position? Was the ball in and out of play? But these are the types of things where you need to say, hey, ref, we think we see a handball at this instance. You need to come look at it. And that's where these types of decisions need to be made, is on the field at the monitor. I feel like in other leagues, you see more referees going to the monitor to make decisions. Even if they're in a Yeti cooler, they go to the monitor to make a decision. And in the Prem, that seems to be the anomaly, right? And I think they need to kind of get closer to let the on-field referee use the video equipment to make his own decision.
Okay, well, it is that time where Drew has found a quiet spot, and we bring in Drew to discuss things. And so now we have Arsenal and Manchester United.
I have a bone to pick with Drew.
Here we go.
Why can't you and all the other damn teams in this freaking league take points off of Man City just once a year, please? This is all your fault.
Well, I mean, did last year and the year before that, but just not when you needed it the most.
I know. I am taking a little bit of exception, and Drew, since you are not an Arsenal fan. The idea that we bottled it is quite annoying, because we did just about everything we could. We have as many wins as City. We conceded fewer goals than City. We had 89 damn points this year. So I don't know how that's bottling it.
Well, were you in first place?
At some points, but we all knew that our first place was because of
City. How many points ahead of City were you before you bottled the first place? I mean, it is what it is. I mean,
but the thing is that our first place we all knew was a little bit false because of the matches played. Like, if you want to look at a team who bottled it, no one's looking at Liverpool, and that's just because Klopp, everyone wants to be nice to him. They were legitimately in first place, and look at them.
No, I know, but Liverpool's won some trophies recently.
We have FA Cups.
When finishing and not winning it and being in first place, arguably the majority of the season, that's arguably the definition of bottling.
All right. Sorry, we didn't. Sorry, we took 4 points off Man City. Our bad.
No, it's all good.
Oh,
maybe next year.
Oh boy,
it won't happen next year. I just understand that Man City will never not win the league, because they're never going to be held accountable for their clearly cheatorious whatever actions. And that's fine.
I've already started my 3D for this week, and make sure to listen, because there's I want people to really get the clarity of what the charges are and what's about to come down for them, because I really think sooner than later. Now, I don't know about trophies being taken away. Arguably, they should be, just because they couldn't get to the foundation they were at right now without cheating all those many times. But, I mean, listen, without cheating, without being who they were, I mean, it's arguable that Arsenal would have ran away with the trophy 3 months ago, So I can't wait. But again, we don't know how. I mean, look how quick they were with Leicester City. They aren't even in the league anymore.
I know.
And they're saying Leicester moving up, they're going to have, they could possibly have points taken. Why can't we get to the team that everybody wants to know about? The most important part of this league. And let's be honest, four titles in a row.
It's easier to pick on the little. It's easier to pick on the little guy.
6 of the last 7. The only time they didn't win is because of COVID.
Yeah. I mean, something's got to be answered about it. And I don't think it's really sour grapes coming from a United fan or an Arsenal fan. Facts are facts. I mean, 115 charges, and that's all we know about. So I just think that something's got to be done. I mean, United went on their tear back in the 90s and ran off all of the trophies and whatnot. I just feel that was a different era. Now with so much involvement, now with so many more people involved. I read a tweet yesterday. Someone said, congratulations, Premier League. You're now the French League. And I don't know how I feel about that, but I mean, there's some truth behind it.
I mean, isn't that what the Premier League fans have always said about continental leagues? Is that you only have one team that's good and the rest of them are bad? I mean, Bayern isn't winning the league this year, but they've won at 28 million league.
That's the Harry Kane effect, Bart.
I agree. It is Harry. Like, obviously, this is what you get for signing Harry Kane. But PSG's won it how many times in a row? Bayern's won I think this is going to be only the second time in 15 years they haven't won it.
Yeah.
City is dominating this league, and there's some case to be made that dynasties are good, right? Like, you want to beat, but we look at it from an American perspective and you go, well, yeah, the Lakers dynasty, you achieve that in different means in the way Man City has achieved their dynasty. And to your point, we're going back a decade of building this thing in financially unethical. I don't even know if that's the word.
I think
financially shady ways, and to your point, it's not just because Alex look at spending. It's not just spending. It's not just transfer money, because look, everyone spends a lot on transfers. They're getting out of control. UEFA/FIFA need to figure out ways to control transfer fees. However, it's wages. It's unreported wages. It's unreported money is being sent to people who somehow are getting paid off of a free transfer for the greatest player in the world. There's a lot that goes into it, more than just we spent a lot of money to acquire this player.
Yeah, and I think you hit the nail on the head when you said shady, because it's almost getting into racketeering for the Premier League.
Can't say that. Oh, Bart.
It feels very SMU. I'll just put it that way.
Here we go. Bart, I think this might be the image that folks might be looking for.
Yeah. Exactly.
It
just makes me mad.
Yeah, that's the still that folks that successfully zaprudered the activity when it came to the Honey Mukhtar swan dive. That's what you're staring at. See, I've got to do it with. I've got to twist my wrist.
There you go. You had it. There it is.
There it is. So there's your zaprudered still of Hani starting the dive up and over the top. There we go. All right. So, all right. Bart, what's the latest with soccer for you as POD?
Well, there's a U.S. men's national team roster coming out reportedly today. So we'll be recording probably tomorrow about that and have the episode out on Friday. Also covering some of the FIFA Congress decisions that were made. Some of them interestingly good. Some of them curiously curious.
Curiously curious.
Specifically, the women's international match calendar had an international window taken away, which I don't think anyone's overarchingly mad at, right? I think we all recognize that was probably good. But yet the men's calendar, where they play way more matches, by the way, unchanged. No, but hey, Johnny said it's not FIFA's fault.
Today, I feel
fit, apparently, is what Johnny Infantino is saying.
I feel fit.
And breaking down a little bit why Brazil ended up winning the 2027 Women's World Cup. I read through the executive summaries as well as the bids when they first came up, and mainly the executive summaries, and it's very clear why.
Yeah,
and I don't want to say it's just money, but when your smallest stadium is 40,000 and your largest is 80, and
they're going to 50% capacities in a way.
Yeah, well, the thing is yes, but with the ability to expand, if you sell those tickets, you can sell more.
It's a production hold, basically.
Right. A lot of the problems with the BGN bid was you're talking about stadiums that are even under 30,000. So you don't even have the capacity to expand if you sell out those tickets. So I think they had a great pitch of the travel, but at the end of the day, when your final stadium is Johan Cruyff Arena that holds 56,000 versus, which is a great stadium. I'm not making
versus Maracana, yeah.
Maracana, which holds 80,000.
Yeah.
You see what's going to happen here.
Well, yeah. That and the BNG bid basically said, "No, we ain't paying for everything. You got to help us out."
That
was a red flag for FIFA.
Yeah.
Today,
but one of the main proponents of the bid, or positives of the bid, was these stadiums. Most of these stadiums were built or renovated in 2014 for a World Cup.
Yeah.
So we know they meet the standards. And actually, a lot of the BGN bids didn't meet all of those standards because now they could very easily, but there's more than just capacity that people are taking into account. Yeah. And it was the first time ever, John, that I actually saw in a bid summary talking about minimum capacity. There's not one stated specifically, but they were talking about it as because I did talk a lot about Johan Cruyff and other stadiums being too small for the competition. So anyway, we'll be talking about that. We'll be talking about the men's national team roster that's hopefully coming out, and maybe a little bit about Emma. She's got to go beat the freaking Spanish, as she said, which is fine. Welcome, Emma Hayes.
Yes. Thanks as always, my friend, and thank you for the guest collision, discussing things with prim and proper. Be well, my friend.
Yeah, have fun.
There we go. And so, all right. We've got a handful of minutes, I know, with you. I don't want to get you into any trouble with the real world. What else is on your mind? And I know that you're rooting. Obviously, I know where you're rooting on the weekend. And I know that means that Alex and Maddie and a couple of others are locked in as Newcastleians rooting for you this weekend going up against
United's only clear way into Europe is winning the FA Cup final, of course. I had a chat with a friend yesterday, and he was like, he's under the impression that not going to Europe will help. I think going to Europe is good just for, how do I say this?
Say it.
Going to Europe for United. I mean, I tend to agree. Let's get things back in order before we go and play so many more games next year like we did this year. But going to Europe, there's just an aura about it. Whether Conference League, I argue, is just as pointless as the NIT tournament, but it gives people more time to play, and the money's always going to be there. But I'm not. Obviously, my main focus as a fan and as a supporter, I just want to win the FA Cup. Let's talk about all the other stuff, the what ifs, the possibilities. Let's talk about that if and when it does happen. But I think the main focus needs to be on Manchester City, who are flying high right now. For the first time, not for the first time, but remember last year in this situation, they were still playing in the Champions League, but they still came and kind of handled United in the final. United didn't play very well. We saw Lisandro Martinez have about 55 minutes this past weekend. Kind of an uneventful 55 minutes. I guess what you can say is just trying to get his feet back under him. He checked out in the 55th minute. Rafael Varane came back in. He got some minutes. So the writing, I guess, for me is on the wall. They're going to start as the two center backs for their last pairing together. We know Varane is leaving after the FA Cup final. So I think it's smart. I think Ten Hag will play both of them in the back as the two center back pairings. Now, the big question for me going into the game this past weekend was the status of Sofyan Amrabat playing as the defensive midfielder. And I think we can all agree, if you watch the game, I think he played himself out of the FA Cup final. He lost the ball, gave the ball up more times than I could really even count, especially in the first half. I mean, even the commentators, were just really, really digging on it seemed like every time he touched the ball, he was either giving it away or he had pressure that he didn't know was coming. And I don't know if you noticed this either, John, but watching the game, United were very compact. Ahmad was in the middle of the field, Garnacho was in the middle of the field, and everybody, I feel like, was just in this 5 to 10 yard barrier to where anytime someone wanted to move up with the ball, they couldn't because someone was right there in front of them. There was no structure. And let's be honest, every aspect of that game, Brighton Hove Albion, they dominated. Everything on the stat sheet was in favor of Brighton except for shots on target. The shots on target was 4-3 in favor of United. I think United had 11 shots to Brighton 17. But that's nothing different for United because we know that they've conceded more shots than anyone in the Premier League this season. And John, I've said it since the beginning of this calendar year, and I'm going to say it again. If not for Andre Onana,
listen to you, man. You have gone 180 degrees on Andre Onana.
With the clean sheet yesterday, he moved into the top 4, or I think the top 3 in the Golden Glove race.
Mm-hmm.
He, was finished. David Rea he won it for Arsenal. But the amount of saves, arguably game-winning saves that he's made over just in the last month. Yes, he's had some stinkers. Those, nobody wants to talk about the beautiful saves that he makes. They want to talk about the mistakes, which I get. But he is really coming on, and with a healthy back 4 and a rotating back 4. Because look, let's be honest again. I'm not too sure if Aaron Wan-Bissaka is going to be around next year, so there'll be a little bit more assistance in the back because Diogo Dalot, he's untouchable. But it was just unfortunate to see De Zerbi go out like that because, like I said, John, I mean, they dominated the game. And listening to his post-match presser, I was under the impression just like, he wanted to step down. No, it was, Brighton wanting to go a different way, and they couldn't come to an agreement, and that shocks me. Well, what are your thoughts on that? I mean, is that how you read it?
I think it was, yeah.
The most success arguably that they've ever had, and I guess it just came down to sporting control. It sounded like De Zerbi wanted to have a little bit more. He wanted to do things his way.
Mm-hmm. So, because you bring this up, I will bring in Nick Alifi.
Okay.
And Nick, a little SOT. So, I know that. So Drew mentioned De Zerbi, and I'm like, oh crap, there's my spidey senses, and then this is when Nick parachuted in, literally because of what the future might be for De Zerbi. So, De Zerbi, Nick, you kind of might hit your end game with Brighton, where you take them to a certain point, they can only invest a certain level, and then De Zerbi's like, nah, I'm out.
This feels like typical behavior from a club like Brighton, where they have an opportunity that if they stick with the process, they could elevate their status. And then they decide, no, we're not going to do that because, either the fear of financial investment or somebody along the line who doesn't want to give up control. And this is the difference, I think, between some of the historically successful clubs and those that almost seem to enjoy being mid-table, and which is kind of sad. But De Zerbi has a style that is not going to excite certain people, meaning that it can be dangerous defensively at times. Very exciting going forward, but De Zerbi wants to go back to Italy. I think he wants to go back to Milan when it looked like Pioli was going to be shoved out. His spider sense probably started, pinging off the walls. And so he decided that, it's a fine position for him to be in because he can push to Brighton to say, look, I want more control. If I'm going to stay here, I would like a little bit more control over the kind of player profile that I'm seeking to have. And then for them to say, nope, that's not going to happen. Okay, great. Because if Milan screws this up, which is, I love Milan's my team. We are well within our capacity to screw this up beyond belief. But if we screw this up, Napoli's waiting. And there are options for him back in Italy. So this is, to me, I want De Zerbi at Milan. I think it would be a match made in heaven. Pioli, God bless him, got us a Scudetto, but he's an Inter man. This means something that, Pioli was an Inter guy. And it's, to have someone who is Milanisti at heart to come back in, I think it's something that a lot of us Milan supporters are waiting on. But man, you have to think that Brighton fumbled the ball here. I mean, it just feels like they did a magnificent fumble from them.
Sensei _ Coco, welcome, by the way. Dejerby wants Milan. Milanista at heart, would be a dream to see him there. So
Agreed.
It looks like we're all on the same page. Drew, I don't want to get you into any trouble. What else is on your mind before you go?
Well, maybe you kind of expected it. Maybe the audience did, but listen, are we really throwing a tipper taker, whatever you say, parade for a guy?
Ticker tape parade.
Yeah, well, easy for me to say, right? For a guy that went trophyless 5 out of 8 seasons, they're comparing him to Sir Alex Ferguson. I mean, can we just get this love affair with Jurgen Klopp? Just get him. Just go. Just go somewhere. I mean, how? I mean, you have a championship Sunday and you make it all about a guy who, won the Premier League during the COVID season. Because if LeBron and the Lakers, their championship isn't worthy for the bubble, then how can Klopp's? But I'm just over it. Let's again, he's nowhere near the coach or the person that Sir Alex Ferguson was for Man United. Like I said, didn't win a trophy 5 out of the 8 seasons, and yet he's this this Liverpool god. Yeah, whatever. Good riddance, Jurgen. But I'm interested to see how they're gonna. I mean, it's kind of like you feel like I didn't think he was going to go anywhere. I mean, it's very strange that you want to leave after 8 seasons. I mean, even Pep's talking about leaving City after 25. But it's going to be interesting to see how they pick up where he left off, because I don't know what the culture is going to be like. Do the players want to leave? Do they want to stay? But I just wanted to get on my soapbox and talk about that real quick. And listen, let's be honest. When you're first place in the league more than one time out of the year, and you lose games coming down to the wire, and you allow the team in second place to jump you and win the league, that's the definition of BOTTLE. But I digress.
So you've already started your 3D for this week. Are we going to get?
Lots to talk about. It's a fun rivalry. It's not my favorite, Man United rivalry, but having your crosstown rival for the second year in a row in the FA Cup final. But I've also been doing a lot of research on, like I said earlier, on the charges that City are facing with the Premier League and financial fair play. I want to put it out there. I want people who, you hear about it, but you don't know exactly what's going on or what the quote unquote charges are, because there's so many of 1 or 2 or 3. And it's not like 115 separate cases. It's, 30 or 40 of one separate thing or something like that. So I want to talk about that, but I also want to talk about how I feel that United can line up and possibly pull an upset. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I'm saying it's possible. And we'll talk about that on Friday.
Yes, you will, because and it's always fun to get your points of view here, because when you do unleash,
Mike Dudley's over the right. Great dick.
When that gets unleashed, it's always fun to hear. So we're looking forward to it, my friend. Thanks for dropping by, and we will catch you. Yeah,
one more cheap plug, if you don't mind.
Go for it. What's going on with Deep South?
We had an absolute amazing show last night at Das Barbecue. I mean, it was packed to the gills, if you will. And
if you will,
it was just a great show. Very fun. This Saturday, we are donning a new brewery, for us at least. We will be on the Beltline at New Realm Brewing Saturday, bell time 6 p.m. Come on out. Come support your favorite local independent wrestling. And listen, guys, it's a ball. Last night, there were so many more kids there last night than I've ever seen. They were getting into the action. They had autographs, pictures, and stuff afterwards. Come on out. We'll have some fun, and you can catch me at the announce table. And if you're lucky, I'll have some in-ring segments. So it'll be a fun time. Come on out and support us. Das Barbecue there. Look at me. Yeah. New Realm this Saturday.
There you go. And this man's not afraid to take a bump either. Be safe, my friend. We'll catch up with you soon.
All right, brother.
All right. So, Nick, what the hell's going on with Suning and not having money and maybe getting new money? What the hell's going on over there?
Well, just like any significant amount of debt, the primary payment's not the issue. It's going to be the interest that ends up eating you alive. It's the same thing here. For anyone who is a fan of soccer, calcio, football, however you call it, it's easy to poke fun at your rivals and say, ha, 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 you're broke. You know, a hedge fund owns you. And this is something we've talked about repeatedly on this show, that the days of it being club football are over. These are corporate assets now. You don't have to like it. You can hate it. You can, yell at me for saying this stuff, but these teams are owned by hedge funds. You may have a name like Stephen Zhang as the president or the chairman, but at the end of the day, Oak Tree Capital is the financial backer of Inter, just like Elliott was for Milan. There's a challenge here where Suning Holdings are not able to, it doesn't appear anyway, that they are able to make their payments. And as a result of that, Oak Tree is now preparing to do a takeover as early as this Wednesday on Inter, on all Inter assets. This does not mean the club is going into administration. This does not mean that they're going to be wound up. It simply is a takeover, just like Elliott had whenever Young Hong Lee's monopoly money was exposed at Milan, and Elliott took over and proceeded to build the team up and then sell them to Jerry Cardinal. But what you have now is Oak Tree will be taking over. I imagine will be following a very similar playbook to Elliott, which is do what they can to reduce the debt load of the club, make it at least financially break even, and then sell them probably to a Middle Eastern consortium if I had to put my gambling chips on the table. There are a few groups out there that have tried to get into Serie A, the Middle Eastern consortium variety, and no doubt Oak Tree will not be waiting for a buyer for long. Inter's a very attractive club in essentially what is the New York of Italy. You have significant tourist population that comes in there. It will be no problem filling the seats. You have an acting Scudetto winner. But this goes again to show the financial issues within Calcio, meaning that you have 5 Champions League spots now in Italy. You have probably the most teams in European football coming up next season in Italy. The level of play is not the issue. The players, not the issue. The challenge is the dinosaurs who are making the marketing decisions for the league, that are making the television deals for the league. It is an absolute nightmare from that perspective. And until the dinosaurs are gone and they start making better TV deals and better marketing deals, they are just going to continue to have these challenges. There's no reason at all that a club like AC Milan or Inter or Juve should be having any sort of financial challenges. However, because they don't have the economic behemoth that is the Premier League TV deal, we are now seeing what can happen without that sort of cash flow steroid that is being issued in England. And I'm not mad at them. I'm not mad at the Premier League for being able to financially juice via TV money. Hey, look, they made the deal. The numbers of viewership are there to back it. Fantastic. But I can only sit there and imagine what it would be like if Italy had the same level of viewership. And a lot of that goes to the morons making the decisions at Serie A headquarters. And the fact that they've had so many PR disasters and nightmares certainly doesn't help anything either. But primary indicator of this is that they're trying to decide what to do with the Paramount Plus deal. I'm sorry. There has never been a better television product for Serie A than what is currently happening right now with Paramount Plus. There's never been this level of investment. BN never had this level of investment. ESPN did not have this level of investment. And the fact that this is even up for debate is moronic. So, I don't know what's going to happen with Calcio from a television perspective, but I can tell you this: Inter will not be on the market for very long.
David Ornstein yesterday, in discussing De Zerbi, said, "I think it's fair." Quote: "I think it's fair to say Roberto De Zerbi is a difficult person to work with. Many geniuses are. He's a fantastic coach. There had been tensions behind the scenes, not least over recruitment. Tony Bloom is a highly successful owner. If he feels that anything is holding Brighton back, he's going to do away with it. He wants this progress to continue." End quote. So that was David Ornstein discussing De Zerbi.
Okay. Okay. Let's just go ahead and stop right there.
Yeah.
Okay. He's a difficult personality. All right. Agents are looking at this and they know their clients quite well. And if you have a manager with personality who's anything but a yes man, they're going to be viewed as difficult to work with. So why should I send my client there? Why should I talk with Brighton and say, okay, you had the most PR good pub that you've had in God knows how long. Right? You had people who were watching Brighton, the exciting style of play that they had. I don't ever recall hearing Brighton's name kicked around in the media more than I have this past season. And this goes back to when the Premier League had their little extravaganza here in Atlanta. When has Brighton ever had this much publicity? I can't recall when.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it was fantastic to be able to pick the brain of Roberto De Zerbi when he was here for the summer series last year. It was great to be able to have a setting where you can have a bit of a back and forth with him and Thomas Frank, and they were fantastic to deal with. I mean, I understand that Eddie Howe was in a difficult spot with Newcastle, and that Pochettino was new with Chelsea, but to be able to pick the brain of Thomas Frank a little bit, to be able to pick the brain of Roberto De Zerbi a little bit, I thought it was cool. I thought it was one of those things that you rarely get the chance to do.
Right. And this is why guys like Big Sam have jobs and they're never going to have to worry. Guys like Big Sam are never going to be out completely because you have owners who make these kind of decisions to say, oh, well, I have a difficult management personality. I'm shoving him out the door. Okay, who are you going to bring in? Okay, I'll bring in the next rising superstar who flames out, you tank in the standings, and then here comes Big Sam. It's like the old Thanos lines, like you couldn't live with your own failure, so where did that bring you? Back to me.
Yeah.
This is part of the issue with some of these mid-table clubs that cannot commit to building a certain way. And you could talk about having an owner who says, oh, I'm going to remove the obstacles and I'm going to give us a green light to be successful, but I'm going to fire the manager first. Yeah. Okay. No, the obstacle's you, right? The obstacle is you. Part of having, good ownership is knowing when to step out of the way and let the people with significant talent run the show. You may have significant money. That doesn't mean you have significant talent. And, for Brighton, of all teams, to sit here and say, okay, we are going to blow this thing up because, what so-and-so is difficult. I mean, good luck finding your next manager who's a transformative figure, because almost all transformative figures are a bit kooky, and they have to be, because you're wanting someone who thinks outside of the box, someone who views things in an unorthodox manner. People said the same thing about Jurgen Klopp. Jurgen is this kind of eccentric, highly energetic guy who, he's, and look at all of the acolytes that have, that are part of that school of, come from the Rangnick school. They're all knuckleheads. They're all wacky in a way. Jurgen is probably one of the more positive ones of the group, but Tuchel is a part of that group as well. What do they say about Tuchel? Well, he's
difficult to deal with.
He's difficult to deal with. Well, guess what? A lot of leaders are. A lot of unorthodox leaders are, quote unquote, difficult to deal with.
Yep.
But you have to make a choice. I mean, Rinus Michels was difficult to deal with. Arrigo Sacchi was difficult to deal with. Good God. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. Sometimes to have success, you have to work with. Sir Alex Ferguson was difficult to work with for some people. I mean,
well, it's his way or the highway.
Right. And so there's a reason that these people have success is because they stick to their guns and they think outside the box and they break convention. Jose Mourinho, high functioning knuckleheads. Yes. Mm-hmm. Jose Mourinho, very difficult to deal with, did things way out of the box, found tremendous success in the process. Pep Guardiola, whenever he was coming up as a management figure, if anywhere else outside of Barcelona, he wouldn't have, people would have been like, get this dude out of here. He's a nut. But within the confines of Barcelona and the style of play that they encourage and they love, people said, okay, this guy's it. And he had the backing of another knucklehead, right? And Johan Cruyff. And so, who was also notoriously difficult to deal with. These people are transformative figures. Transformative figures are difficult at times because they know what it's going to take to implement their style. That doesn't mean you deal with toxic behavior. I didn't say toxic. Jose Mourinho's act became toxic over time. Mm-hmm. And I don't think he's ever been able to get out of that.
No, I think when the world catches up to you, I think that the behavior goes in that direction.
Right. And, there comes a time when you have to learn to gracefully step away, but
or go to Saudi Arabia and get a paycheck.
Yeah, exactly. But, I can't, this has less to do with De Zerbi than it does with Brighton, in my opinion. You have these guys who come in and they buy controlling interest of these clubs. Mm-hmm. And they believe that they are successful because of a certain way that they do business. And you saw the same thing with Chelsea, where, you had one guy come in and Roman Abramovich who came in and said, I want to win it all. And that's one thing, like from Carlo Ancelotti's autobiography, where it details the meeting between Abramovich and Carlo. And Carlo sat down at a dinner table, and Abramovich's first words to him were, "My dear Carlo, I want to win everything." And that mindset, and I this is not anything to do with Abramovich as a human being, but Abramovich knew to sign the checks and let Carlo run things. But at some point, Abramovich's need to control got in the way of every management relationship that he had, right? But for a period of time, he could step back and let the manager cook. And he did that a few times and had tremendous success. You see managers try to copycat that style, or owners rather try to copycat that style, and it doesn't work because they can't get out of their own damn way. And these mid-table teams pull the plug on these time and time and time and time and time again. And Frank de Boer at Crystal Palace, everybody pokes fun at that. Everybody makes fun of it. But if you read the stories that were coming out of Crystal Palace at the time, the academy kids were beating the first team, running Frank's system, because the kids believed it. They bought into it. They didn't question it. And they implemented it at a higher level than the first teamers, and the first teamers had a revolt. So ownership pulled the plug because the results obviously were not there from a first team perspective.
Correct.
And, really Frank should have been like, all right, fine, I'll play the kids. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. But, that didn't happen. But, it set Crystal Palace back. Oof. And
now Crystal Palace is where they are and where they've always been, graciously mid-table and okay. They are safe. They are the brown paper bag of English soccer.
Yeah, they want, and that's a lot of teams. A lot of mid-table teams would rather be safe than successful. And that's fine. And there's a lot of podcasts out there where you can listen to it and they all say the same thing. To be transformative takes risk. You have to be willing to, invest more of yourself than you probably feel comfortable with, get out of your comfort zone. And the comfort zone for these teams is mid-table and safe. I'm not bottom 3. We're not going to be top 5. I don't have the resources to get there. Great. So where else am I going to be? Mid-table, baby.
Get me to 40 points and I'm cool. By the way, we got some of this. U.S. men's national team announced their roster for the upcoming friendlies and the training camp ahead of the Copa. 18 of the 27 were on the 2022 World Cup roster. One player will have to be cut for the Copa squad to be in full. 4 strikers are on the team right now. Keepers, Ethan Horvath, Sean Johnson, Matt Turner. Defenders, CCV, Christopher Lund, who's spending time at Palermo, Mark McKenzie, Shaq Moore, Tim Ream, Chris Richards, Anthony Robinson, Miles Robinson, and Joe Scally. Midfielders, Tyler Adams, Johnny, Luca De La Torre, Weston McKinney, Eunice Musa, Gio Reyna, Malik Tillman, Timmy Tillman. Forwards, Brendan Aronson, Falarin Balogun, Ricardo Pepe, Christian Pulisic, Josh Sargent, Tim Weah, and Haji Wright. So that's the roster, and 3GB is going to have his discussions coming up at the bottom of the hour virtually. Colombia, Landover, Maryland, June 8. Brazil, 4 days later in Orlando. Once again, both prior to the roster for the 2024 Copa. For Brazil, for Argentina, by the way, get this. No Thiago Almada. It is Emi Martinez, names of note. It's Armani, Rulli, Emi Martinez, Montiel, Nahuel Molina, Balerdi, Christian Romero from Spurs, Petzela from Real Betis, Corta, Otamendi from Benfica, Lissandro Martinez, Marcos Acuna, Tagliafico, Valentin Barco, Guido Rodriguez, Paredes, Alexis, Rodrigo de Paul, Ezequiel Palacios, Enzo Fernandez, Lo Celso, Di Maria, Carboni, Messi, Correa, Garnacho, Nico Gonzalez, Lautaro Martinez, and Julian Alvarez. Messi's name on that list means the friendlies that are on the 9th and the 14th of June. Safe to say, unless something happens between the 10th and the 14th, Lionel Messi will not be in Philadelphia for the matchup on June 15th. So that is your national team news this morning.
From the U.S., from the acronyms, the fighting acronyms perspective.
Yes.
Okay. All right. We're going to open up the can.
Go for it.
I don't get why Gio Reyna's on the roster. I get that. I get the kid's talented, but Claudio Reyna, as much as he likes to interfere, should be calling Greg Berhalter up. I mean, obviously he has the number, and saying, "Thank you, Greg. Thank you for believing in my dear baby boy, my dear, sweet, loving child, and putting him on this roster, because there's been nothing on tape as of recent that says that he needs to be." And the fact that you've done this shows your tremendous love and admiration for Gio and your belief in his skill set, despite people in Europe not having the same ideas as you do. If you're going to call and you're going to nuke a man's career and you're going to nuke your relationships, then you better damn well call up 3GB and thank him for believing in your boy. The quality of Reyna could be seen at the nation. Okay, so Sensei Coco says the quality of Reyna could be seen at the Nations League despite not playing a lot for the club. What? Okay, that's fair. That's fair. But you have to be able to perform regularly and at a high level with your club. And that's not happening right now for Gio. So this is a favor call up. This is a, I'm not going to say it's a last shot because it's not. It's the fighting acronyms don't believe in last shots, I think, for players. This is probably one of the few, I don't want to say the few ones, but there are some times when a player's poor club form is just wiped away and they still get the national team call up.
You get it on rep. You get it on rep as opposed to stats.
Right. And that's fine. I have no issues with Gio as a player. None. I have an issue with Daddy Reyna and Mommy Reyna. I have major issues with them. Mm-hmm. My point being is that Claudio needs to call up 3GB and say, thank you for taking a shot. Sorry, I tried to nuke your career. Because right now it looks like only fighting acronym fans and 3GB are the only ones who believe in Gio. Because nobody else does. Clubs in Europe don't believe in him. I think that's pretty obvious. Or they don't want any of the radioactivity that comes with them. To me, you need to be performing for your club to get the national team call up. And I've seen too many times where these legacy names get called in and it causes more problems than they're worth. You saw this with Roberto Baggio in 2004. 2006 rather. They wanted Baggio to be called up. They wanted Maldini to be called in, and the national team said, "No, we're moving on," and with great success. But if you're trying to elevate your status as a national team, you have to be a bit more cutthroat, I think. Gio's at the age where he should be playing out of his mind for club. Yeah. It's not happening. And so that's why I make the point that I do. That's the thing. That's a great question. Coco says, I agree with you that you need to consistently perform for club. And this is favoritism. Who do we bring in instead? Jordi, Luciano. Great question. That, don't know.
That's a question for Bart in the Soccer for USPOD.
Right. For me, it's more of this is, I'm not saying it's a make good for the World Cup, but this is favoritism. That's fine. This is an opportunity for Gio to show out, to secure a move from Forest, to go to find a team that will take him on. And all this is on Gio. It's at Gio's feet. Daddy needs to stay out of it. Mommy needs to stay out of it. Gio needs to show out, which he can do. But I'm sorry, but it's hard for me. It's hard for me. And I agree with Almada not being called up to the Argentine national team. That, has he had moments for the club where he's done well? Yes. But comparatively speaking, has he done better than a lot of the players that have been called in for the Argentine national team? No. Does it mean that Almada's value is decreasing, as Hutcho asked, as he stays here? At the moment, yes. Can he change that? Also, yes. I think that this summer, if I'm Thiago's agent, I'm probably pushing for a move. Even if it is back to Argentina, I think that missing this call up is concerning. When Copa America comes around, if you're not listed on that, to me, that is a clear signal to get back to Argentina or get to Europe. That's your two options. Yeah. If you want to keep playing, if you want to keep being that one person, to get the call, you're going to have to put yourself in a different situation than what you are here. If Atlanta was top of the table and flying, or within like the top 3 and flying, and he was putting up some of those eye-popping highlights like he had a year ago, 2 years ago, then yes, sure. I don't think there's been enough highlight tape. There are a lot of things that players will do that aren't going to end up on a stat sheet that, are significant to club success. Without Almada in the lineup, it's going to be interesting to see how the club plays. If the form doesn't drop off significantly, if it improves, that's not great for him, for Thiago.
Yeah.
If it completely falls apart without Thiago, that may be more beneficial for Thiago. Obviously not great for Atlanta United, but at the end of the day, Thiago Almada has not done enough, in my opinion, to earn the call up, because it's not just our favorite as a player, but it's also all the players in that national pool that he has to fight against. And before, with the previous World Cup, he was one of the emerging, crazy talents, future 10 for Argentina. And now it's like, well, I mean, there are people in Argentina who are balling out of control right now, and it's hard to make that justification unless you have an Atlanta United shirt on that Thiago needs to be a part of that club.
Yeah. So interesting news, obviously, out of both Argentina and the acronyms this morning. So we'll see what's going on. But no, I think what it also does is it reinforces Argentina wanting to go as all in as humanly possible on Copa. And
yeah,
you have the European, and you have the European the European season's over. So much like where the U.S. pulled in a lot of their experienced players, I think the average age is like 25-02.
Mm-hmm.
You're getting a lot of the European talent back into your fold for Copa, right, and not having to rely on other leagues to fill your roster space.
Well, yeah, and I think that John Roper asked, could Almada be in the mix for Olympic team? Absolutely. Yeah, I don't think he's out of any national team consideration at all. But if you look at sort of the order of importance, the Olympics aren't up there. It's not number one. That's Copa. And so Copa's number one. The Olympics are probably going to be number two. So Almada could fit into that bracket.
Yeah.
But if I'm Thiago's agent, putting aside my Atlanta United fandom for a bit, I'm pushing for a move. I'm not waiting for the end of the season, because I can't. If we start missing national team call-ups,
mm-hmm,
the experiment's not working, and we have to switch the narrative here. So that means getting back to Argentina or over to Europe. And this summer, depending upon where certain managers go, that could open a lot of doors for Thiago Almada to go overseas. I don't know if you're getting the amount of money that you want, but the option is there for you to force your way out if you would like to do it.
Yep. Total of 9 players currently on clubs who are going to participate in Champions League: Falair and Balogun, CCV, Weston McKennie and Weah, Musa, Pulisic, Pepe, Malik Tillman, Gio Reyna. By the way, Gio Reyna's numbers, I know that a lot of folks are looking at, Gio Reyna and like, oh, okay. Gio Reyna at Forest, after the loan from Dortmund. So at Dortmund, 11 matches, 1 start, 280 minutes. No points on the board. For Forest, 9 matches, 2 starts, 235 minutes. One of those was a 70-minute start. So if you pull one of those starts out of the board, so 235 minutes total, 1 assist. So for and I want to get the breakdown of the starts versus actual participation here. So hang on just a second. I need a game-by-game breakdown. Hello. I would like a game-by-game breakdown, please. Match logs. There we go. Thank you.
And while you're doing that, I'll answer some of the.
Go for it.
Peach.
Yep, go for it.
Abster says maybe he's not on the roster since he's injured currently, and they want him to heal first. It could be there. That could be it.
Yeah.
But my thought is, if you look at the player pool that they've selected from, if you look at how that's, the players that are selected, I can't sit there and say that Thiago's better or equal or better than, oh my God, a friggin' Cooper's Hawk just ate something in my backyard. That was metal. But the trials of life in Dunwoody.
Yes.
But I can't say that Thiago's equal or better than half the players that were called up on that roster.
Yeah.
So, could it be? Yes. But if you're an agent and you're Thiago, you have to sit there and say, okay, we missed a call up here. Could it be injury? Yes. But we also have to start looking and saying, okay, is this something that, is going to start being more the norm? What was the conversation like with Argentine management? Was it, hey, look, you get healthy. We'll call you when we can, or, hey, we're saving you for the Olympics, or, there's a lot of information that we need to know here, but if you're asking me, I think there hasn't been enough game tape that says he should be called up over players who are currently playing in Argentina and Europe who are finding better success. And that it is what it is. And I am a Pineda fanboy, Signore Corsi. I want Pineda to ball out and be awesome because I forget, as a person, I love the guy. Results aren't there, but I love the guy. And that doesn't mean I want him to stay on longer than this year, but I want him to have significant success because I am a Pineda fanboy. I'm a believer in the person. And I still believe, as we have spoken about before, that when he leaves here, he's going to go back to being an assistant in Seattle. And then when Schmetzer steps down, Gonzo's going to step in and he's going to turn that team into a friggin' monster. So that's my 2 cents. I think that's going to happen. And I would prefer that not to happen. But, and Hutcho asked if, isn't part of the overall business plan of Atlanta United to develop and sell players? Not anymore. Not anymore. That was under previous management. That was the idea. However, whenever our good sir, and this is my ADHD at the moment, my brain blanked out on guy's name. Mm-hmm. Current team president.
Who? Garth or
yeah, Garth. Yeah. So I interviewed Garth whenever at the introductory press conference, and that was one of the questions I asked him. Was the previous business model was, yeah, thank you. This is what happens when you have unmedicated ADHD and you're on a radio show and you have to have immediate recall. Your brain's instead like factoring what warp 9 would be like in a go-kart.
Yeah.
But instead, so when I met with Garth at the press conference, I asked him directly, said, Garth, the previous administration had an idea of purchasing young South American talent, developing and selling them on. The idea was to build players and sell. Is this model going to continue? And he said, no, not necessarily. We want to find the best players that will be here for a while and can compete and put us in positions to win trophies. So that, in my opinion, is where the new mindset is, which is what you saw in the player profile when we got Mayumba and Tiare and a lot of these other guys that came in. They are not people we are going to sell after 2 years. So we don't have sort of 2 or 3 years. We don't have this sort of artificial timeline, between success and failure of a player. Instead, we have players who are here consistently. Maybe they're not in the national team picture, and that's fine because they're going to be here more. It allows them more opportunities for team chemistry. I think that's what the current push is for. And so Almada will be the last of the previous admin's player pool, where the idea was to bring in significant high ceiling players from South America and develop them and then sell them on. I think those days are done in Atlanta, in my opinion.
To answer the question about Gio Reyna in his minutes. sub 13 minutes, sub 18 minutes, sub 10 minutes, and this is in Premier League play. Sub 31 minutes, sub 14 minutes, sub 10 minutes, start 70 minutes, 1 assist, start 52 minutes, sub 17 minutes. So if you take out the 2 starts on 122 minutes, it's 7 matches on 113 minutes coming in as a sub. That's what Gio Reyna has done with Nottingham Forest. That's what he has done.
Yeah, not great.
And
I mean, that's fine. He's
one
a
assist
sub.
one assist on the board, and literally it is 5 shots, 2 on target, 1 assist. There you go.
I mean, hey, it is with when you look at the issues with Gio Reyna, when he was at Dortmund, what was the image, right? Claudio Reyna walking into headquarters, right? When you read, I believe it was The Athletic that put out the conversation about Gio Reyna, and they talked about how Claudio steered Gio away from Marseille, and I'm trying to remember the team in Spain as well, but steered him away from Spain, steered him away from France, and steered him to the Premier League, right? Claudio.
Mm-hmm.
In the middle of a World Cup, who tried to blow everything up because his baby boy wasn't getting playing time?
I believe his
Claudio.
last name was Reyna.
Yeah. Gio is a fine player who has a radioactive helicopter parent. And for those who say, well, Messi's dad represents him. Yeah, well, that player is Lionel Messi. And that's like not even playing the same sport. I mean, you're talking about a player who's like a galaxy away from where Gio is. You have talent means you allow a certain level of idiocy. Claudio is going to be there, and this is where it goes back on Gio. Gio's going to have to be a man because he's a man. He's not a boy. And he's going to have to say, Dad, back the blank up. Yeah, I love you. I love you. Thank you so much for everything that you do for me. Thank you for backing me. Thank you for believing in me. But I've got to tow this machine on my own now. And that's hard for any parent to hear. I got 2 kids. I got a 14-year-old. I got a 7-year-old. And my 14-year-old is now starting to get into photography. And he's now starting to, he does like sports photography and all this stuff. He's putting out Instagram messages when the team, like when he can't make a game, and it's impressive. But I try to tell him, hey, how about that? And he's like, Dad, I got it. And so I've had to learn, Dad, back up.
Mm-hmm.
It's on him. He wants to be successful. He wants to succeed and fail on his own. And that is damn awesome. But it's hard to hear. But Claudio needs to hear that. Claudio and his wife need to hear, back up and let me succeed or fail on my own. And 3GB putting Gio on the roster is like the ultimate hookup. And I'm hoping Greg is texting Claudio saying, I put your boy on the roster, shut your mouth and stay out of my business. So don't keep my name out of your mouth forevermore. Don't call my team. Don't text my team. Don't email US Soccer. Nothing. Because your kid shouldn't be here. But I'm putting him on the roster.
So is he the plus? So is he the +1 in your mind?
That gets cut?
No, could he be the +1? Yeah.
Yeah, he could be. I don't think he needs to be on the roster at all. But I mean, this is like a career-saving move in my mind. This is Greg trying to save this kid's career, which is, unbelievably generous in my mind.
But Dad, back off.
Yeah, but Dad, back off. That would be the message. That should be the message that Gio is sending to his parents. But if there's a reason, the kid's talented. It's obvious. The kid has talent. It is obvious. I say kid, he's a man. He's very talented. But for some reason, everywhere he goes, he's either not getting playing time or mommy or daddy are getting involved. So, I mean, two things can be true at once. The man can be talented and his parents can be radioactive, and it's poisoning the relationship between the player and the clubs.
Yeah, they don't have to be mutually exclusive.
They don't have to be mutually exclusive. As far as Atlanta United and flipping South American players for profit, I'll say this. Motivation does marvelous things. And if you have a player like Dax McCarty, who is motivated to prove that even at his age, he still has something to offer, you see what happens when he comes in games. I mean, the man's work ethic is relentless, right? I mean, he's busting. I was not sure about that signing. I was like, man, this guy's he ain't got much left in the tank, because he's been running his ass off his whole career. How much more does he have left? And he has proven me wrong. So that motivation is significant. But you have players who are here right now who at times in games, I don't know, they pull a John Cena and you can't see them. Right? Like they were there 1 minute and they're now suddenly absent. I have no idea what happened. Where's that motivation? But with the South American kids who come up, there is motivation for them to get to Europe, to prove themselves, to get to the next level. So they are going to be busting their ass. You may not like Marcy Moreno, but he busted his ass. I mean, guy was running nonstop. Guy was working like crazy. Did it become clogged with him and Barco? Yes. But he was working his ass off. I mean, Barco was, working his ass off on the Instagram DMs, but I mean, dude was also working on the field. He was flying around like crazy. I'm perfectly fine when players have motivation. What I don't like is when players come in expecting a nice paycheck, a steady paycheck from a financially stable club, and then pull a John Cena. I have major problems with that. When you pull a "you can't see me" in the 60th minute, I have major problems with that.
Yeah.
So motivation, we could say, well, motivation shouldn't be an issue. These are professional soccer players. I'm sorry. Motivation is always an issue. Always. You have to figure out what is going to get you up and working and, kind of fueling that refuse to lose mentality. I see it from Dax McCarty, a man who's fighting Twilight. Okay. And to me, as a 43-year-old man, you will not find a bigger Dax McCarty fan than me right now. As somebody who did not believe this was a great signing.
Yeah.
Because I see a man fighting the Twilight and, going out on his shield. And I freaking love it. Dax McCarty, if you are listening to this, you're the freaking man.
Yep.
You've proven me wrong. Start him going forward because he's proven it to me. But I have no problems with calling South American kids up, but I do think you have to be a bit more intentional in your process. I will say that.
Well, and for me, I think that Dax is what you would have liked Ozzy Alonso to be, except Ozzy was injured.
Correct. Yeah.
He is the veteran presence that you want to spot start, come in, be a great locker room guy, be there for you in secondary competitions or competitions outside of MLS. I don't want to call Open Cup secondary, but he's the veteran guy that you bring in. You bring him out of the bullpen. Give me 20 minutes, lock this thing down. Give me 30, give me a spot start, be there in the locker room for the young guys. That kind of a presence, and you're getting that from Dax.
Yeah, and there are a lot of players who would look at that and be like, "That I don't want that." I would rather be, doing something else than doing spot starts and coming off the bench. I don't see any of that out of him. I see guys coming in and flying. So, and it's proof also that people on this side of the microphone could be wrong on things. You know, we're human.
What?
I know. I believe that I like to believe that I have a pretty decent eye for talent, but there are times that I'm wrong. Dax is one of them. You know, I thought, you know, and I say this now and people can be like, but he scored a goal. I thought Schließ would be probably a little bit more effective than he has been, because I thought coming from Poland that man was going to be wrecking shop. If you've never seen a Polish league game, I thought that man was going to be wrecking shop. I've seen moments where he's great, and I've seen moments where he John Cena's. And I don't know any reasoning behind it. I'm not saying the man's slacking or lacking or whatever, but I'll just say that I hope that he finds a bit more consistency. Mayumba, I thought when he first came in was, you know, he was the connective glue that we had been missing from the 8. And, you know, there's been some inconsistencies there, but I think that he's a player who I think can solve it. But I'm not going to sit there and trash the system that got us Miguel Almiron. And I'm not going to trash the system that, you know, that dug up, you know, I thought Barco had great moments for us. Immature, he probably came over here maybe a year or two early. You know, if you know anything about when he went back to South America, he got back into the DM trouble again. You know, the same thing that got him in trouble here, he got in trouble for in South America. He was a young guy, and now, you know, he's doing great things in South America. So I have no problem bringing players that, you know, whether we are actively moving to sell them or what, but I need players with motivation, whether it's selfish motivation or whether it's team-based motivation. I don't care. Get me across the line. The old Al Davis, just win, baby.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I want that. And so, you know, I'm not gonna say we need to completely move away from that system. I do think we need to be a bit more judicious about it than we may have been in the past. Like when we had Barco and then we brought in Moreno, you know, that it got clogged up, you know, like there was 2 guys trying to essentially play the same role and it became problematic. Like, to me, that's what I mean when I say, I think we should be a bit more judicious. Like if you have a young playmaker, do you necessarily need 2 who do a lot of the same things? Right. I don't know, but there are soccer people who'd be like, yes, dumbass, you do need that. And I'd be like, yeah, okay, all right, sure, I'll hear that argument. Me personally, I say no, but yeah. I'm not going to completely throw it out the window. I think it can work in the right situation with the right context. It can work, but it doesn't need to be your whole system. And I think we did get a bit in trouble with that. Because, I'm just going to say, because, you know, when we were winning, we had Jeff Lorenowitz, who was not a South American flip. No. He was very much in the McCarty role of, hey, you're coming in here to spot start and get minutes off the bench. And he turned into a freaking starter and a badass one at that. So I'm happy finding those kind of players. You know, you keep finding me more dudes like that, man, we're good to go.
Greg Berhalter, in his virtual getting together, has confirmed that Brian Reynolds is headed to the Olympic player pool and that he is projecting Haji Wright as a winger for the time being. So that's why, as the 4th of those individuals that has been mentioned, so he's projecting Haji Wright as more of a winger and versatility being there for Haji Wright as opposed to being part of the striker pool. So that's where we are with Greg Berhalter. He, like I said, he's having his virtual availability right now, discussing the player pool and what's going on and various questions about the Olympic player pool, the trickle-down effect, and all of that kind of stuff. So anything else on your mind before we go? We went like wow.
Big over.
Well, we went the extra 30. We went past the 120 minutes and we went the extra 30, man. We're like,
that's because I was running my mouth.
Well, no, because we had breaking news. It was stuff that had to be addressed. Yeah. I'd like to thank you. I'd like to thank both the Argentine national team and the U.S. men's national team for giving us breaking news before we sign off, which is always nice because it doesn't happen all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so to be able to doing that. But you also, he's not, Tiago's heading to the Olympics.
There we go.
Yeah. So
it's not terrible.
Yeah. So Tiago is Olympics instead of Copa.
If he had not made the Olympic roster, I would be like, get out. Like it was just, if I were his agent, I'd be like, you're getting out of Atlanta. We're getting you somewhere like, back to South America on a loan deal or something.
So what you've got is the veterans from Europe coming over to play Copa, the youngins being shifted to the Olympic roster to try to win Olympic gold in Paris. And so Tiago is a part of the Olympic squad for Argentina.
And nothing wrong with that. That's fine.
There you go. All right. So I've got to flip this show up to our Canadian friends. And so Pasic's like, you went 2 hours and 40 minutes today. Yeah. We had stuff to talk about. It's just how it goes.
It's how it goes.
We went supersized on a Monday. So thanks to Nick for talking about the Dejerby and everything else that's there. All the chaos that's going on in Italy. We can talk about Serie B and Serie A and all of that madness coming up in just a little bit. Thanks to Drew and for Bart for doing Prem and Proper the review. Thanks to Nick for doing Prem and Proper the review to get us into the Dejerby discussion. Thanks to Bart for going over reffing down here and letting us know what's a dive and what's not a dive. And the honey rules and how disappointing Nashville is as a group. And then everybody on the Twitch pitch this morning who's hung out with us for 2 hours and 40 minutes to discuss what's going on with Atlanta United and everything else on a Reaction Monday. And thanks, Dave Gordon at 92.9 The Game for being with us to start the show. When did we start this show? Back at like 9 something? So
I guess.
Yeah, something like that. So breaking news carries us over to do the extra 30 and everything else this morning. So Nick, since you are here, go ahead and send us home.
Okay, until next time, everybody, remember, just like your favorite players, success is not permanent. Failure is not permanent. It's up to you to flip the script. Until next time, everyone, mucha, mucha, Euro, y'all.
What he said, back 9:05 tomorrow morning.